When I heard that, the next episode is called Crimson Sky. अब तो मतलब Battle of the Bastards होने वाला है आज तो मतलब भाई White Walkers आने वाले, जापान के सारे समुराई आने वाले. Who gives a shit about you, Prince Harry? Get over yourself. Sit down. Have a conversation with your goddamn parents. Nobody cares that you're a spare. Nobody would care if you're an heir. You're a monarchy. What is the point of you?
मैं उठता हूँ एक दिन और मैं देखता हूँ Godzilla Minus One is on Netflix.
Did you watch it?
Oh, I loved it.
What a great film. I watched it literally last night. The first time that...
Oh no.
I was like, what the hell is going on here? I am so turned on by this giant lizard right now.
वैनिटी फेयर का एक यूट्यूब चैनल का शो था टिंडर टेकओवर. सो जिम जाफिगन एक बंदे का टिंडर देख रहा होता है जिसने अपनी बायो में डाला हुआ है नेक्रोफिलियाक सीकिंग डाउन टू अर्थ गर्ल्स. Get ready to see the greatest pop culture episode ever. Yes, Rohan Joshi is back on Chalchitra Talks. He was one of the most requested guest episodes in the last few years, and we finally made it happen. Welcome to another episode of Audible Presents The Longest Interview. In this episode, Rohan Joshi and I talked about everything. हमने shows की बातें की, movies की बातें की, books की बातें की, games की बातें की, हमने party games की बातें की. So it's a very deeply passionate episode because Rohan brings in such amazing energy. मतलब मैं तो बहुत ज़्यादा excited हूँ for you guys to watch this episode. This episode is 2.5 hours long. So yeah, you guys are in for a treat. Coffee बना के बैठो and let's jump right inside the conversation we had with Rohan Joshi on Chalchitra Talks. Hi Rohan, how are you?
Hey Vaibhav, what's up? Part 2.
Part 2.
I just want to say I'm out of recommendations, okay? I really I spent it all on that first episode that we did.
जब तुम दोनों पैदा नहीं हुए थे तब एक किताबों का सीरीज था basically it was called World Famous Dash. ये हर स्कूल टेक्स्ट बुक शॉप में मिलता था.
I have a 25-page recommendations of Rohan Joshi.
Oh God, I don't have another 25 pages to add to that, unfortunately. I'm done. I didn't know there was going to be a part 2 with sponsor and all. Arey, sir. Arey, matlab. Audible, edible, lovely.
बट मेरे को लगता है जो recommendations आप दुनिया में प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो मैं कर रहा हूँ एक ही जना हो रहा है हम दोनों के अलावा ओबामा.
Barack Obama. Who knew that Barack Obama was going to seamlessly transition from president of the United States to pop culture enthusiast, right?
Have you discovered some great recommendations through him?
I haven't yet, actually.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I'm a little jealous of him. So
but when you see Ahuja Aftab and Pratik Kuhad in his
exactly. Something. But it also just goes to show, right? Like in the sense, if you tweak your algorithm well and if you're willing to try, you could be Barack Obama, but Pratik Kuhad will show up on your playlist. Like that's amazing to me about this world that we live in, right? I think that's truly incredible.
Have you seen his interview with Hassan Minhaj where Hassan asked him, have you really read all those books and watched all those movies?
Do you really read all those books, watch all those shows, and listen to all those songs?
I do. Listen,
Oh, no, you don't.
I am so glad that I had this opportunity.
Please.
I'm surprised. Weren't you supposed to be leading this country? As what our son wanted to ask him, I think. But yeah, I think it's great. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's transitioned really well.
But Rohan, you are one of the most requested guests on our channel, and I want to thank you particularly for some of the recommendations I took from you.
Which ones? I'm curious.
सबसे पहले तो हम shows की मैं बात करूँ तो Scavengers Raid, and I'm so thankful.
Man, what a show, right?
What a show.
What a great time just in general we live in for animation.
Yeah.
Right? I think not just adult animation, children's animation. I think we're living in this weird golden period for it. Whether it's Scavengers Rain, whether it's Blue Eye Samurai, right? Whether it's even children's shows, right? If you there's this Canadian show called Bluey, which kids are watching, which even adults are hooked to now because it's just got this weird A, surreal and B, also highly relatable sort of this thing to it. So, yeah. And Scavenger's Reign might get a season 2. Max cancelled it, but Netflix has sort of picked it up.
Max cancelled it?
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. But yeah, Max has decided not to give Scavenger's Reign a season 2. But I think from what I hear, Netflix has acquired it and might give it the season 2 that we all want.
So it affected me so much, like, and it's, I think, an unpopular opinion or a popular opinion. I couldn't appreciate Boy and the Heron that much.
Yeah, fair. No, Boy and the Heron is beautiful, but it's still Ghibli doing Ghibli. I think this was sort of like, in a way, like, it's part Ghibli, part like just this sort of beautiful. It's almost like Scavenger's Reign, if I had to describe it in one sentence for me, was like, what if Ghibli made Planet Earth?
Wow.
Right? Because that's what it was, right? You had these people doing their thing and then just these beautiful, like, 6-minute wordless sequences of just these alien animals doing things, right? That felt like Planet Earth. And I think more than anything else, like, when you watch a show like that, you think you're going to feel like, tension, stress, this is a survivor story, etc. But I remember watching that show and thinking, this is almost meditative.
Yeah.
Like, in this usually hyper ADD sort of world that we live in, this show is almost meditative.
Yeah.
And it's like you can put it on at night and wind down to it.
Absolutely.
Almost. It's just, and at every frame of painting,
yes,
that show is that.
Yes.
Like,
they have a great opening credit also, like 7 frames, like the opening titles that they have, and it like showcases the whole story.
The whole story, right? About the ship and everything going down and how it happened and gives you all of that. Just beautiful.
And so much like in the physics of it all, right? Like physics mein itna invest ho jate ho ki kitna dimag lagaya. And that R2D2 character in that, like that robot.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. What an entertaining robot character. Like, I'm a huge fan of also how like pop culture started interpreting robots. Right? Like earlier it used to be that very like Skynet or like 3PO, right? Like that's what you got.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah. Right. And now you have TARS like in Interstellar. You've got the robot here. I just think it's cool. I think it's cool that we're sort of evolving our relationship with technology in pop culture that way.
And then we have all these Love, Death and Robots.
Oh man, Love, Death and Robots. Again, that's another show you can just put on like random episodes and just watch. Like, what was that one episode? Something Blue.
Yeah, it's one of the last episodes. Where there's
beautiful
this
episode.
Nima Blue.
Nima Blue or something. What an episode that was. Oh my god.
And both the episodes of that Spider-Verse guy, Alberto Mielgo.
Oh yeah. Outside. We also, we got Boys Invincible also. How can we? So underrated. It just flew under the radar. If you haven't seen it, please watch. Is it? No, not Invincible. Boys what? Boys Diabolical.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Please watch it. It's an animated series set in the Boys universe.
Okay.
So 10 sort of standalone shorts. And not even like in our current sort of, it's almost like if you had to imagine it, imagine What If, but in the Boys universe. Literally, and they gave each episode to a different animator and a different writer. And the result is from that typical boys level, straight up gore porn to like, there's one episode that, believe it or not, Andy Samberg has directed.
Oh.
Which is just one of the most stunning takes on like just the idea of power that I've seen. There's another episode that Awkwafina wrote, which is literally her. I'm not even making this up. I don't know what the algorithm is going to do with this information, but it's literally Awkwafina talking to, she lays a sentient turd, okay, that talks back to her, basically. It's Awkwafina and her potty. And that's what the episode is about.
I wish I was pretty, like you.
Like me?
And it's somehow hilarious and amazing. So Boys Diabolical is great. Invincible. I thought season 2 was decent. I don't know. I was not a big fan of the way they sort of split seasons because of the strike and wanting to sort of push content out. But I think given that we live in a world that currently has Scavenger's Reign, Blue Eye Samurai, Boys Diabolical, Invincible, among all these things.
Another one I recommended, I have a recommendation, guys. There's an Instagram broadcast channel called Pop Culture Recommendations.
Yes. It's a dead channel that occasionally comes to life once every 3 months with a recommendation. Please join it.
And I discovered through that, I haven't watched it yet, Pluto, the anime.
Yes, Pluto is excellent. If you haven't watched, please watch it. Again, it's one of those, again, our relationship with technology. It's a story of, it's a bit like Spielberg and Kubrick's AI also, in a sort of way where it's sort of like what if you created like these super robots, but then what if these sort of robots just had this profound intellectual revelation and went, I don't know why these guys are our masters. But they didn't take the Skynet route, they just took the more deeply personal vengeance route. Sort of. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. Again, highly recommended. Please watch it.
एनिमेशन में मैं एक आपको रिकमेंडेशन देना चाहता हूँ. इट्स अ मूवी एक्चुअली, बट इट्स कॉल्ड वाइट प्लास्टिक स्काई.
Okay.
आई वॉच्ड इट इन मुंबई फिल्म फेस्टिवल. सो इट्स अबाउट अ यूनिवर्स. बेसिकली बहुत बड़ा सा एक स्फीयर बनाया हुआ है जिसके बाहर पूरी दुनिया लाइक वो फ्यूरियोसा टाइप है, राइट? उसके अंदर ही देयर इज अ इकोसिस्टम. सो एवरी पर्सन टिल द एज ऑफ 50 लाइक गेट्स टू लिव, बट आफ्टर द एज ऑफ 50 दे हैव टू डोनेट देयर लाइव्स, व्हिच जिनकी बॉडी और ट्रीज बेसिकली मिक्स हो जाते हैं. सो यू बिकम अ ट्री आफ्टर द एज ऑफ 50.
Okay.
And but if you are in depression, if you are like if you want to kill yourself, you can donate your life before that. कि मेरा हो गया.
Okay.
So this movie starts with this lady who has had enough in life. और वो बिफोर हर टाइम 50 के एज में एक ट्रक आता है और आपको ले जाता है, अब आप एक पेड़ बन जाओगे, आपसे इकोसिस्टम चलेगा.
Amazing.
बट दिस गर्ल,
Where do I sign up for this?
बट दिस गर्ल डिसाइड्स कि मेरे को पहले करना है, एंड देन शी गोज टू दिस प्लेस वेयर शी इज बीइंग कन्वर्टेड इनटू अ ट्री, बट द हस्बैंड डजंट वांट दैट टू हैपन एंड दे हैव पार्टेड
Oh, that
वेज.
sounds beautiful.
And then the husband goes on this journey. Very scavengers rain.
Does it
type.
have a release or anything like that? Is
I
there
have
any?
nahi. You will have to.
White plastic sky. You
Yeah.
are going to have to send me this. I don't want to take my phone out right now and start making notes, but white plastic sky.
No, but
Okay.
you will have to kind of use some
Sail the
different
seas,
means.
sail the seas, sail the high seas. We'll see.
Yeah.
White plastic. That sounds lovely though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the thing with such shows is that like so I anyway have a thing for this desolated loneliness, if particularly in dystopia.
100%.
Like you really get invested.
Yeah,
into
you get fully. I think what happens is if you see desolation and loneliness not in a dystopia but in our real world, it's too much.
Yeah.
Right? It's too much. It's just too close to reality. But when you sort of recontextualize that same desolation in a new landscape, you can just deal with it. I think it's also one of the only reasons I could get through Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Because I'm like, okay, this could be the story of like depressed people in our world, but it's only the slight removal of the setting. If you haven't read it, I don't know if I recommended it the last time, but it's a stunning book.
It's also a movie.
It's also a movie with Viggo Mortensen. But the book, like, I've only read some Cormac McCarthy, but his style of writing it's sort of very unique in the sense that he just sort of writes these almost long run-on sentences and pages, like almost stream of consciousness. It's a bleak book. I'm telling you right now, if you're not in the right headspace for it, if you're not in a good place, I don't recommend The Road. It's bleak, start to finish. It's essentially a father and son trying to make their way through the apocalypse. But it's not Furiosa. It's more like Pather Panchali. That's the only way I know how to describe it. But it's beautiful, and his writing style is so unique compared to like a lot of other novelists that I've read. It's hard to read sometimes, but beautiful. Like in 180 pages, the way he conveys not just external desolation, but also like the desolation of the soul, and also somehow this father just trying to keep like this spark of humanity alive in his child. Like let me put it this way, if you thought The Last of Us was depressing, like The Road is like hold my beer. Yeah, that's the sort of book it is.
Dude, yeah. And shows mein, because of your like Insta like channel, I also got to know that like you also like notice the standalone episodes in shows. You talked about the Band of Brothers episode.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So which are some of your favorite standalone episodes from the universe of TV shows?
Oh, how much time you got? Because I'm gonna have to think and
it's
do
called
this.
The Longest Interview, so we
amazing. There's obviously the Bill episode from Last of Us, episode 3.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Right? The Bill story is great. And the reason it's great is, for me, is I've played the game. Yeah. And that story plays out very differently in the game. All right, sorry, we're going to go spoiler mark right here. So in the game, what happens is, they sort of, if I'm not mistaken, they meet Bill, but they find out that like his partner, basically, he left. Because Bill never changed. He was this cranky, this thing guy. And you only find out through letters in the village, basically, that his partner basically said, I've had enough of your shit. And I would literally rather take my chances getting eaten by clickers than spend another minute alive with you. And then the characters go to another part of town where they literally find that he's dead. Because he left the sanctuary and got bitten almost immediately. And he died. And now Bill is again living in alone. So I think it's also a nice sort of take on just how we've sort of started interpreting queer culture in pop culture as well. Because there was this sort of trope, and I think queer people were quite right about it, where they said that one trope that TV used a lot was called bury your gays. Where the second you have a sort of gay storyline, one gay person has to die. Like, the resolution of the story has to be in some form sad and this, that, whatever. And they were like, what nonsense,
Bury
right?
your gays.
And sort of then take that trope and then turn it into, like, instead of like the bury your gays trope, turn it into a story of hope. And survival, and then even like in the end, like it's like their passing is bittersweet, right? It's not, this thing is very bittersweet and really nicely done. So that I think is definitely one of the all-time episodes. Why don't you tell me one while I try to think of others?
So the one that everyone likes in Breaking Bad is the one that
Fly.
Fly is the most polarizing one. The one Ryan Williamson, the Ryan Johnson directed, the Star Wars guy.
But which one? He directed Ozymandias also. Oh,
so everyone likes Ozymandias, but I like the one which comes after that. It's
where
called
he's in the cabin.
Granite State. Where you hear the...
That's the calm before the storm, basically. That's that one calm before the storm.
And where you hear the title track for the first time. The full
full title track. Oh yeah, that was beautiful. What's another standalone
There
episode?
is one in The Bear, season 2 episode.
I think season 2, 1-2 punch of Forks and Fishes. I think
Forks and 6 and 7.
6 and 7. Forks and Fishes, I think it's the single greatest f*** you by any TV show to first give you Fishes, which I think is just one of the most, for me, disturbing episodes of television I've seen in my life.
Throw another fork at me, you're gonna get fucking rocked!
Just in terms of, because I think if you've ever been at a large family gathering, especially in a situation where if you have a family where the parts don't always fit together, right? There are some families where it works and there are some families where family gatherings, especially extended family gatherings, can be very stressful.
I use this line a lot. If you think you're revolt, try having dinner with your family.
100%. 100% this. Absolutely this. And I think Fishes just captures that feeling of, I think more than anybody else, I think those two characters, one is Michael, that's the brother, right? And what is the sister's name?
I don't, bad with the names.
Okay, well, I keep forgetting her name. She has like a nickname that they keep calling her, but basically the two of them in that episode just gets too real for me, like especially when the camera stays on Michael after Kami tells him that, you're my inspiration, etc., all of that.
We could do this, Yeah.
And you can see Michael crumbling on the inside. And also just the daughter trying to deal with Jamie Lee Curtis's just, there's obviously some mental this thing going on there. And to sort of be the child that has had to bear the brunt of that for the longest time, like, brothers are off and you're around and you're just dealing with it, I thought there was a point there where I had to pause that episode and just take like a little breather. Right, where I was like, this is more stressful than some war movies I've seen. And then to somehow immediately follow that up with Forks, right, which is the most, like, I think uplifting story that show has ever told. And I think that Copenhagen episode with Marcus.
It was the third episode, I think.
The third episode. That for me, again, is just such a beautiful standalone episode, right, where you've got this chaos happening in the show usually. And then suddenly you have Marcus goes on just this journey. There's no other word for it, right? This is an episode about two guys making bread in Copenhagen, essentially. It's right, him and Will Poulter.
Yeah, and Will Poulter is not a dick. Everyone thought like he'll...
Everyone expected it, right? And that's the greatest subversion where everybody expects that, in this hospitality agency, the way the show, this guy's going to be some sort of diva dick or whatever. But no, he sort of becomes like this master Uguay almost, sort of to him. And you sort of get that sense of why Carmi sent him there. Yes. Right? And then the way he talks about Carmi also, like Will Poulter's character, right? Where he talks about, I thought I was hot shit. And then one day this guy came in.
He worked harder than I ever could. And it was the first time I realized that I wasn't the best.
He doesn't say the name, but he just goes, this guy came in and he showed me that mujhe kuch nahi pata. Non-fiction, it's leaping out at me since it's standalone. Anthony Bourdain, no reservations, I think. Was it Parts Unknown? Parts Unknown, Tokyo. Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, Tokyo episode is, to me, one of the greatest fever dreams. I think that there are fiction shows that have not done fever dreams like that. I think the only way to describe it is like Tokyo on crack. Like, what if you did Tokyo on crack? And he starts the episode also by saying that, this is a beautiful line at the start of the episode where he says, like, I was this arrogant, like, hotshot chef, all right? And then I came to Japan for the first time. He talks about it in his book also. And he's like, coming to Japan for the first time for me, he's like, imagine you're like Eric Clapton or you're whatever, and you think you're a guitar god. And then one day you're in the audience and you see Jimi Hendrix play for the first time. And you're like, I thought I was good. But then there's this whole other world of good that I've not even touched, right? And he's like, that's what it was like coming to Tokyo for the first time as a chef for me, just seeing a world that I didn't even know.
It was just like taking acid for the first time.
And then from that, just exploring these multiple little subcultures of Tokyo. And what I love is that he takes, like with Bourdain's traveling, he takes every place on its own terms. He's not trying to be like the American, imprinting the American viewpoint on it or any of those things. He's very good at, and a lot of travel hosts don't do that very well, right? But Bourdain is very great at taking places on their own terms. And I think over 45 minutes, the subcultures of Tokyo that he explores, he does with such great curiosity and empathy. It's not a food show. That's the best thing. It's as a chef, but this is not a food show. This is a show about being in a certain place and just sort of experiencing it on its own terms. And I think it's one of the only episodes of non-fiction TV, I can say confidently, where I finished it. And then immediately, the second I finished it, I rewatched it 2 times that night. Because it is a triumph of everything. It is a triumph of writing and hosting on his part. It is a triumph of just editing and cinematography and pacing, and it is for me like peak non-fiction TV. Like peak, right up there with any of the Top Gear specials, which are quite the opposite. That's one. Now you go while I think of another one.
So I was with someone yesterday and I used to use a lot of quotes, and I said, be curious, not judgmental. And then I'm like, I'm going to go in the auto and watch a scene from Ted Lasso and cry.
Oh yeah.
Be curious, not judgmental. I like that.
I think Ted Lasso for me, like season 1 was the peak. Yeah. But in that sort of final season that happened, I really liked the episode where Jamie Tart and Roy Kent are in Amsterdam. And they just have that moment of, what do you mean you've never ridden a bicycle before?
Don't know how to ride a bike.
Right? It's just so, because another thing that happens is, I don't know if we talked about this the last time, one of the frustrating, especially growing up in India, is you don't see like bro love expressed very well, right? I think that's something that actually is just happening now, right? All expressions of sort of bro love so far have been very like either toxic masculine or, that it's expressed as that sort of Sholay, I will sacrifice myself and die for you overarching, as opposed to the little day-to-day things of, bro, are you okay? Bro, you need help. Bro, like, when Roy Kent just comes and hugs him after his dad is an asshole to him and things like that. And I thought that episode really sort of brought their relationship to this beautiful place where one is teaching the other how to ride a bicycle. Yeah. And you're just seeing these two, because especially when you look at footballers, you have such a specific masculine, like, macho imagery associated with them. And just seeing these two just being boys, having fun and forming a bond together is something I wish we could see more of. Yeah. Right, in television. So that again is another personal favorite standalone episode. Doctor Who, Blink. All right, if you haven't seen it, it's a great episode. You don't even need to watch any other Doctor Who to watch that episode. I think it's in season 2 of the David Tennant run. It's an episode called Blink.
Your life could depend on this. Don't blink.
And again, it's just one of those perfectly done beautiful little time travel, not time travel, a beautiful standalone sci-fi short story almost that plays out. Like, it's thrilling, it's brilliant, it has iconic villains. Like these villains they were so good that they just had to bring them back again and again with, I think, diminishing returns. Who fans, you can argue with me in the comments, it's fine. But that episode, Blink, it's peak TV. And sticking with sci-fi, Star Trek The Next Generation, I think there's an episode, I think it's called Fallights. Okay? And it's essentially an episode about torture and holding on, like a man trying to hold on to his humanity during torture. And that is beautiful. And there was another episode in The Next Generation. I think, again, sorry, don't quote me on this, but I think the episode is called Inner Light or something light. Again, it's just this beautiful standalone story of, like, okay, again, I'm going into slight spoilers, but the show will, if you watch it, it's beautiful. Basically, what happens is Captain Picard picks up this thing, which essentially puts him in this extremely vivid, what he thinks is a hallucination. But he literally, that item has stored like the memories of a person from a race that has since gone extinct. And he essentially lives out an entire life in the course of that episode, where he sort of sees the demise of this culture and this species while also like living an entire life through the episode. It's almost like Rick and Morty parodied it in that Roy video game, right? So essentially that done with a straight face, without any cynicism. And it's just such a beautiful episode. It's about what if you found a living gravestone and then through that lived a person's life. And then after doing that, how do you come back and just be yourself, and how does it transform you? And I still think, for my money, actually, Star Trek The Next Generation is among like the greatest Star Trek ever made. I think it's the peak of Star Trek. There's 7 seasons of it. There's some filler shit, but there's some standalone episodes in there that are just astonishing. Like better than sci-fi that's even come recently, honestly.
I want to add one.
Yes.
Crimson Sky from Shogun.
Oh God! Oh good God! Crimson Sky is the single most tension-filled, like, it's too stressful, dude, that episode. It's too stressful because I don't know if this happened to you, but with me what happened is when I heard that, the next episode is called Crimson Sky.
Yeah,
मतलब Battle of the Bastards होने वाला है आज तो. मतलब भाई White Walkers आने वाले, जापान के सारे samurai आने वाले, क्या toad action होने वाला है. And then that episode is like someone is taking a piano wire around your throat slowly.
Yeah.
It's just tension followed by tension. Dude, I think for me that entire episode is summed up in that one scene where Mariko-sama, who, by the way, if there's ever any small chance in the world that Anna Sawai watches this, I'll die for you. You should know that. I would 100% die, resurrect myself and die again for you. Is when she's walking and they're firing those arrows at her feet. And even Anjin is just standing there and he's like, Mariko-sama, what the f*** are you doing, right?
Mariko-sama.
I think that encapsulates, that his one emotion of kya kar rahi hai tu, encapsulates my feelings throughout that episode. I was just in constant stress, where I'm like, if I took so much stress for my actual work, maybe बहुत तरक्की होती life में, right? But I was so stressed. That was a stressful hour of TV.
Yeah.
That was a very stressful
and
hour
you
of
only
TV.
realize after one episode, that is why it was Crimson Sky.
Correct. Crimson Sky happened. Crimson Sky happened. Toranaga-sama 5D chessed you.
Yeah.
But,
what do you think of Shogun Season 2 coming out?
I don't think they should do Season 2. I think it's one of those decisions that's being sort of spurred more by executives just being happy that there's a show that's a hit, because the story is told. The book story is told, right? And the thing is, Clavel wrote a bunch of other books that cover sort of subsequent years in Japan and years before that. So I feel like they should move on to that. I feel like instead of sticking with the show, this story to me feels told, right? Like I feel like at least the stories of the characters that I care about in the show are told, right? And it was just, I'd hate for them to do like a cynical, like bad Season 2, right? Like in the sense that, like, one of my favorite things about HBO's Watchmen is that they did that one and done and they went, this is it. We have told a perfect story. The character stories are told. Enough, right? We do not need to do more than this. And I think for me, that's with Shogun, right? Because it is just like, you talk about Crimson Sky, but there were just so many arcs that were beautiful and satisfying. Like if you had told me at the start of the show that one of the people I would be weeping for would be Buntaro.
Yeah.
Right? Like where by the end I would have like deep sympathy towards this man. I would not have believed you. Right? And they somehow do it and they stuck that landing. I don't think they need to take off again.
There's a beautiful video of Nerdwriter, like which came out on how they used translation so well. Like it's basically a character in this show.
Yeah.
Shogun 2024 has found a way to make translation a central theme of the show and the act of translation into gripping television.
So that is something I would recommend to everyone, because with every great show there is one good Nerdwriter video.
100%. Always. That's how you know in a way that a show is good. If Nerdwriter found you good enough to write about or to make a video about, then that's good. Oh, what other?
I also want you to talk about the Band of Brothers one, which you talked about on your Instagram handle.
Which one did I talk about? Bastion?
Episode 6.
Yeah. I think you know what happens in pop culture is when we talk about like what are some of the greatest depictions of war, one of the first things that comes to mind is obviously Saving Private Ryan's, like beach landing sequence, right? And it is of course phenomenal, right? And it captures that kind of sort of full frontal assault in a beautiful way. But what's great about that episode, and I'm going to mess up the name, so I'm not going to say it, Bastignon, something like that is what it's called. But what's great about that episode is it comes into a point where these are not people landing on these shores for the first time. These are men who have already been at it for a while, all right? These are men who they've gone way past like anything they were trained for, anything that. They are literally at this point surviving on instinct and terror. And then you suddenly find yourselves in this forest. In the harshest, imagine you're in the 40s in a European winter, right? You're in this sort of winter sort of space and the elements are killing you. You don't have food coming in from the supply lines. You're losing things to frostbite. And then out of the snow and out of the shadows, bullets start flying. And you're just literally, it is over 1 hour, you are watching a bunch of men break into literally cornered animals and somehow trying to survive that. And that is just one of those episodes where you finish it and you're like, how did anyone who ever returned from something like this or somebody who returns from any kind of war or conflict, the fact that we think that they can come back and just be normal and integrate into what feels like the safety of day-to-day society is absurd. Like it's a 1 hour, this thing of, if you want to know war is bad in 1 hour, that one episode is like, I think when we talked, I recommended Matterhorn as a book. This is very similar to that, where you can't read it and come out thinking to yourself, yeah, war is amazing. All you can come out is thinking, nobody should have to do this. Nobody should have had to do this. It sucked that this happened at all. And it's insane that these people did it and somehow came through it, some of them on the other side. And they are absolutely heroes, but not in a way that any of us should seek to emulate. In a way where we should look at them and be like, no human should have to do this again. And we should all be better to live in a way. And we live in a world right now where we are clearly not being better, right? Like without taking any positions aside, there's enough examples. But yeah, that one episode is like, it should be mandatory viewing for everybody.
There's another great show I discovered through you, thanks to your pop culture recommendations, Jury Duty.
Oh my God! Oh my God, what a beautiful show, right?
Yeah.
What a beautiful show.
And like how you rightly said, it's one of the best feel-good shows of the year.
Because, right, and so I usually hate the prank format, right? Because what happens with the prank format is, I firmly only believe that a prank is a good prank when the second the prank is done, everybody's life can return to the status quo that it was before. That's a good prank. But if you're like breaking people's phones and blowing up people, because sometimes prank formats go in a way where like, fuck, how is someone going to recover from this, right? And so when I first started watching you, I was a little like on the fence because I was kind of like, you're kind of really with this guy, right? And then somehow first of all, shout out to Ronald Lieben, right? For just, they could not have found a nicer guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like this guy could have been 100 things, but through it all, first of all, he takes every absurd thing they throw at him with incredible equanimity, right? He's very, very sweet about it. He's not a douche about anything. Like there's that one episode where that guy like gambles away all his money to him and he's like, yo, are you kidding me? I'm not taking your money.
No. That's a ridiculous number.
Like that's absurd to me, right? And then at the end, again, without giving spoilers, I love how they just, it could have ended with like, ha. It could have ended with like, kya shendi lagai. It could have ended with 3 mahina tere ko pata bhi nahi chala कि हम इतना shendi लगा. But they were like, they end the prank on the sweetest note possible, right? Like on the sweetest note possible, where they sort of look at him and they say like, you know, it's amazing that for 3 months we sort of put you through this shit, but you have just, your good heart has just shone through. Like over the course of it, and हम सब छा गए मतलब ये देख के, and I literally had actual tears streaming down my face, going, this is not how I expected a prank show to end. So yeah, great show.
Have you seen the new Emma Stone and the Nathan Fielder show?
The Choice.
Is
it called something? I haven't. I've heard about it, but again, I think you have to find it in interesting ways.
Yes.
I think you have to find it in interesting ways, and I have not yet used interesting ways to find it, but I've heard good things. While we're on the subject of Emma Stone, can we just talk about the couple of years that Emma Stone has had? All right. Can we, and while we're on the subject of recommendations, Poor Things.
Poor Things, I love Poor Things.
Okay, I will confess, I think we talked about this on the show also last time, that I've moved more towards TV than cinema, because TV has felt more fresh and original, in fact, compared to a lot of mainstream cinema recently. But, dude, I watched Poor Things with 2 friends at home like a couple of months ago, like late, like after Oscar season, after everything, same. And I watched it. And the movie finished, and after a long time, it was a movie where the 3 of us were just shell-shocked. Like at the end of it, it was like, yaar, बहुत almost दिनों छोड़ो सालों बाद ऐसे लग रहा है कि कुछ truly original देखा है. Like completely truly original देखा है. मतलब every shot, every like aesthetic choice, every sort of dialogue choice, every performance choice. And there's some years where the Oscars happen and an award is handed out and you debate it. You're like, was this warranted? Was this not warranted? But within 20 minutes of that movie starting, you're like, why were others even nominated? Right? Like the other nominees should have just been like, hum sharminda hai, hum drop out, because what a performance, boss. What a performance by her. Like, oh my God, every word, every gesture, that entire dance sequence between her and Ruffalo, I think is one of the funniest things I've seen in, like, I've seen comedy movies that have not had scenes that incredibly hilarious. I never expected to, in my life, watch an art house film where I'll have to pause the movie because at one point a character looks at the other and says, "You're a whore!" And she says, "We are the means of our own production."
You're whores! We are our own means of production. Go away.
And I'm like, ha, that's hilarious. And he has no response to that. And I was like, that is hilarious. That is not the response I saw coming at all. But well done. That's hilarious. That's amazing. What a film. Just what a film that was.
And she's also in the next Yorgos Lanthimos
Of course, how could she not be after that? How could she not be? I'd be surprised if he works with anyone else ever again.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be his Scorsese DiCaprio. All right, I think it's going to be like I could watch Yorgos and Emma Stone forever. I'm convinced. I will be there.
William Dafoe is also in the next one, right?
Yes, he is.
And the third guy.
What's it called? Kinds of Kindness.
Something.
Kinds of Kindness, I think it's called. Yeah.
So, and who's the third guy? Jo Kristen Dunst's husband bhi hai.
Oh, Jesse Plemons.
Dude,
what an actor.
I have been saying it.
What an actor. Jesse Plemons is underrated as hell.
When are we getting a Magnus Carlsen biopic played by Jesse Plemons?
Oh my God. Dude, I need to see this thing. What's that guy who was played by Evan Peters in the serial killer. What's his name? Huh? Dahmer. Yeah. I need Jesse Plemons as Jeffrey Dahmer. All right? I really need to, in my life, see Jesse Plemons as Jeffrey Dahmer because I think it would be one of the most iconic things. Dude, that guy can go from babyface to I'll kill you. Like on a dime. He turns on a dime, literally, right?
Civil War, did you?
I've not seen it yet, again, because it's not available anywhere yet, is it?
I saw it in Red Lorry Film Festival.
You saw it at the film festival. I'm waiting for it to come out because, like, It's one of the things, once the name A24 comes somewhere, no, it's like, भाईजान, मैं आपकी बहुत respect करता हूँ. मैं आपको सबसे बड़े screen 4K में ही देखूँगा. It's that. I'm like, I'm not settled for anything less. Right? So that's where I am on Civil War. I can't wait to sort of watch it. But he's amazing. Like Fargo season 2, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Fargo season 2. Him and again Kristen Dunst also, right?
Yeah.
Like when you watch the two of them together, and you're like, Mary Jane, what the hell? What the Mary Jane, you evil! You so evil! It's just, by the way, then when we're on the subject, Fargo season 5. Fargo season 5. Season 4 was okay. Alright, the Chris Rock season. I thought it was alright. I thought it was, by Fargo standards, quite weak. But season 5 is like season 1, season 2 level good.
Wow.
Like they brought it back,
Dude.
alright? It's got Juno Temple. First of all, who in Ted Lasso is just the most adorable this thing. Here, so, okay, Juno Temple versus John Hamm. Okay, John Hamm is the villain. And if I had to give a one-line description of Fargo season 5, it's Juno Temple as Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. Where essentially this woman going, I have to protect my family from these guys who are coming. And it's just a wild performance to watch. I think she should win like every award like for it.
If you want to tussle with me, you better sleep with both eyes open.
And it is a stunning, like end to end, again, it's just one of those where it's like, oh, my balls, they're tightening. Why is this happening? It's just too good. Fargo season 5 is too good. Again, you have to go to interesting places. Unfortunately, I don't know why I don't know why it's not available anywhere, but
But I'm so happy lately, all this stuff is on Jio Cinema, like it's the new Hotstar.
It is, it's just all there. It's like, where is it? The answer inevitably is Jio Cinema. Like, that's it. Netflix pe bas abhi Office chal raha hai, theek hai? Wait, I love Netflix, but can I just say one thing? You've got to stop recommending I watched Furiosa the other day, which, by the way, did you watch Furiosa?
I have to, I'm watching it tomorrow.
Please watch Furiosa. Yeah. I think the reviews have been very unfair to this movie, alright? They have been bullshit unfair to Furiosa. It's not Fury Road, but it is still, like in terms of action iconography, I think like between Denis Villeneuve and George Miller, they have somehow managed to make desert sexy.
Yeah.
Alright?
Nice.
I didn't expect these two filmmakers of all people be like, you know what, we're going to make desert sexy again. And it's just a completely different visual language, obviously, from the language of Dune, right? Which has this sort of very formal, almost regal, this thing too. And Mad Max is like this wasteland, right?
Yeah.
I thought, like, again, it's not a perfect film, but again, there's one action sequence in the middle of the movie that is like miles ahead of anything anyone has done in years. Like, I think the only one I can point to before that is, funnily enough, Fury Road. It's one of those, where it's like peak Fury Road. There's one action sequence in the middle which is so good where once it finishes, even though the rest of the movie is good, you can be like, I need to go home and take a shower. It's that good, right? And Chris Hemsworth as playing a character called Dementis, which is really all you need to know, all right? It's almost like Chris Hemsworth going, oh, so you like Thor. Now watch me it up. Like, watch me give you nightmares. Like, be the anti-Thor. And he's great. Like, to the point where I want to see Hemsworth play more bad guys.
Yeah.
I watched that movie, and you're going to watch it soon. But my first thought was, like, I watched that movie and I'm like, I want Hemsworth to play the Joker. Which is not a sentence I ever thought I would say in my life, alright?
Yeah.
But I'm like, holy shit, Hemsworth could be the Joker. Like, literally. So, Furiosa was great, but I had a tangent that I was... never mind.
One great thing Netflix did in its defense...
Oh yeah, no, what I was telling you about, Netflix is because I watched Furiosa. Then I went home. And I was like, chalo, Fury Road dekhte hai. I go to Netflix and I type in Mad Max Fury Road. First recommendation, Fury Road. Next to it, The Office. Hey, do you want to watch Fury Road or The Office? No, I'm looking for Fury Road. Stop recommending The Office to me, alright? Scranton, different kind of wasteland. Alright? Existential sadness wasteland, different from Fury Road wasteland. Netflix, stop trying to shove The Office down my throat. stop it.
One great thing Netflix has done recently, मैं उठता हूँ एक दिन और मैं देखता हूँ Godzilla Minus One is on Netflix.
Did you watch it?
Oh, I loved it.
What a great film! I watched it literally last night. What an amazing film after a long time, like peak Godzilla.
Yeah.
And again, to just sort of take Godzilla back to its roots,
Yeah.
right? Where no, this is a post-war Japan metaphor, right? And to make it about like. Again, I don't want to give spoilers about this movie. Please go watch it on Netflix. But to make it about the characters that they make it about, or to have some of the imagery that they have in it is a great Godzilla story. It is a great Japan after the war story. Yeah. And it isn't often that you watch a Godzilla movie and come out of it thinking, so the central message of this movie is live. Live your best life, right? It's not what you come out thinking like will be the main message of a Godzilla movie, and that's what it is. It's like bad thing, but pick yourself up and can live, right? And I thought, man, what a great film.
I think there are 4 action scenes in it. The second one where they're trying to bomb it. That's the one which stood out for me.
Oh man. Oh, dude, no, just that entire Ginza sequence. Right? Just that entire Ginza sequence where you just see Godzilla being Godzilla. And then the first time that...
Oh, no.
And then that heat ray, I was like, what the hell is going on here? I am so turned on by this giant lizard right now. But yeah, great movie. Great movie. Because it's crazy, right? In the same year, we got Godzilla x Kong, which in a way sort of strips both those characters of all their metaphors, right? And just turns them into straight up, essentially Fortnite characters, right? And then you got this, which was sort of made in Japan and tells this beautiful... Super, what a year for Godzilla.
Yeah. How actively are you currently playing tennis?
Very actively. But now with the rains, I'll have to sort of slow down.
I challenge you for a tennis match. I've been playing for the last 3 years.
I am 100% in. I will get my ass kicked by you, but I accept the challenge.
And we just need one Zendaya to sit. And
let's start small, Vaibhav. But I will say this. I do want to, again, on the tiniest chance that Zendaya watches this, I think you have done more for tennis in the last year or two than I think even Roger Federer has, okay? With the greatest of respect to Roger Federer, I'm really looking forward to 12 final days and all of those things. But thank you to Zendaya for doing like #1 most best this thing for tennis.
What's your opinion of challenges?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh.
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah. So the thing is, right, came to the theaters, but I just, did they censor it?
Very little.
But I can't deal with it. The second I see one censored scene also, no, I get this feeling of, घर जाके देखना है अभी वापस, ठीक है? So certain movies now, once I realize they're A-rated, no, I'll be like, मैं घर पे देखूंगा. Right? Especially because this is a drama. It's got Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. I'm like, you know what? This is a at home.
But this was a theater film.
Oh, really? Alright, ठीक है. I missed it. It's fine, but I will watch it at home. I haven't seen it yet. I will watch it at home.
मतलब मैं अभी मेरे movie club में लिखा था. My whole personality since I watched it is challengers.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, the good news is I know it's very easy to distract you on the tennis court. But I have to bring another attractive tennis player along.
And you know, when I heard the Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross music for the first time, तब मेरे लिए इतना लैंड नहीं किया, but it grew on me. Like every day I've been listening to it.
That's what they do, man. Yeah. That's what they do. They make this sort of music, these soundscapes that really get under your skin. Like, I still listen to the Gone Girl soundtrack.
Sugar Storm, dude.
Sugar Storm. And my personal favorite is a track called Technically Missing. There's a track on that album called Technically Missing. And again, it's just this beautiful, slow soundscape, like just tension build that happens. And I think it's honestly even better than some of the stuff that like Hans Zimmer did in Dunkirk. Just tremendous.
And it's true for Watchmen also and Social Network also. Hand Cover Bruise, In Motion.
100%. Icon. You know what's amazing is while we're talking about, and since you mentioned Trent Reznor, Natural Leap Off Point, have you seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem while we were talking about animated films?
No.
Okay, first of all, it is straight up the best TMNT movie ever made. Okay, and I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan growing up. And this is, so I think it's either, I don't think it's directed by, but I think produced and written by Seth Rogen, who himself is a gigantic TMNT nerd, okay? And it really takes and again, they've sort of given it that Spider-Verse treatment, where it's got this really unique sort of comic-y animated style. If you need more of a recommendation to watch it, Splinter is Master Splinter, the rat who knows Kung Fu, is played by Jackie Chan, okay? Like, what more do you need in this world? And it's really great, like, not just the turtles, it's not just Splinter. They bring in all these other little, like, turtle lore characters like Wingnut, Bebop, Rocksteady, etc. And again, they tell a story that just has, like, the first time, you watch Into the Spider-Verse, like, this story has so much heart.
Yeah.
Right? And Mutant Mayhem is just, it's all heart. And it is available online to watch. And again, it's just one of those, hey, what a great time to be an animation sort of fan. It's a really fun movie. And funnily enough, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross have done the music for it. Because they're also TMNT fans. So I was just watching it and I didn't know, like, Trent Reznor on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Are you kidding me? But it's a really fun movie. Highly recommended.
Trent Reznor is the Nine Inch Nails.
Yes,
one,
yes.
Yeah. And the other one just does the music company.
Yeah, just does the music on this and was the protagonist of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Now we'll come back to movies and shows, but which are some of the best memes that you have seen recently?
Oh my God. I mean, how to say anything other than Dimple Bhabhi Hatiye, which I think is a meme that has taken over the full internet right now, okay? Like, I think उस meme की अलग शक्ति है.
मैं तो इन्हें चाय पिला रहा था, मुझे नहीं पता था कि
मैं तो समझा था ये फॉरेन कंट्री के बंदे हैं, इनको चाय पिलाना चाहिए, तो मैंने चाय पिलाया.
यार मीम्स को कैसे याद रखे यार, रोज तो 10 नहीं आते.
तन में रिएक्ट में कर बदले.
अरे पर रोज तो 10, मतलब देखो, बैंगन तो क्लासिक है, ठीक है?
कौन सब्जेक्ट अच्छा लगता है?
बैगन.
बैंगन तो क्लासिक मीम है, मतलब वो बंदा तो आइकॉन बन गया अभी, ठीक है? लाइक पहले हमारे ज़माने में वो एक बफरिंग सिंबल होता था, अब बस हम बैंगन बोलते हैं, ठीक है? अगर कुछ आता नहीं है तो बैंगन बोलते हैं हम लोग. आई थिंक दैट्स वन मीम. आई थिंक बिटवीन बैंगन एंड डिम्पल भाभी राइट नाउ, टॉप ऑफ माइंड, दोज आर द टू.
One good way is to think कि यशराज मुखर्जी का लास्ट क्या आया था?
What was the last thing
Yashraj
he did?
So, we can come back to this, but one of the segments that people like the most from our last episode is the subreddit recommendation.
Oh, of course.
So which are the subreddits that you
gotta love a good subreddit. For weirdness, liminal space. Then there's Am I the Asshole?
Oh, dude.
Where the answer is always yes.
You are
yes, you are. You are the, with a capital A, the some of the TIFUs.
Yeah, today
just like, you know, because see, sometimes you want to go on Reddit and you want to learn that however bad your day was, someone else had a worse day. Nature is metal.
Nature is metal.
Because it's always good to be reminded that nature is in fact metal. That's one. What's another one?
I discovered a few through, like, mildly interesting.
Mildly interesting is great. There's also mildly infuriating.
Oh.
Which is great. Just mildly infuriating. Okay, I love that.
So there are some on designs. Bad design, asshole design.
Oh yeah, asshole design is great. Have you read malicious compliance?
Yeah.
Malicious compliance is so fun. If you work a job where you dislike your boss or you feel like you have an intensely bureaucratic setup, please, I urge you, go to malicious compliance. Malicious compliance is how revolutions begin. Okay? With small acts of extremely petty disobedience. Great subreddit. Love malicious compliance.
Do you spend time on Insta celeb gossip, bollies?
No. I feel like the trick with Reddit is you have to use it as not any other social media network. The thing is, right, with X, with Instagram, with Meta, with all those social networks are about you. They place you at the center and they're about you and self. I feel like the joy of Reddit is in you tune out all that shit. I don't give a shit about Insta celeb gossip. I don't give a shit about volley blinds and gossip. I don't give a shit about any of that. I just want to know what are the 15 weirdest things on the internet today. That's all I want to know. And it's just nice to sort of scroll because when you're scrolling Reddit for the first time, and the reason I purposely mute a lot of these accounts is because I want to scroll a social network that is not about me. And it's one of the only social networks that isn't really about you and doesn't place you or posting about yourself at the center. Unless posting about yourself could actually help someone out, right? Or posting where you're actually required to occasionally critically think and give your opinions on other things. So yeah, there's another great one. I don't know if we talked about it last time. Have you followed It's a Unix System?
Yeah, you mentioned.
So
yeah.
that's a really fun one because they just show things from movies where people are like using nonsense to pretend to do hacking and things like that. They'll show one guy doing hacking and they'll be like, "Abbe, media player window chal raha hai wahan pe." They just catch little things and do that. That's a fun one. There's another really fun one called Lost Redditors, which is just people posting screenshots of people who have just posted things in the wrong subreddit, like without realizing it. ठीक है? Like एक उस दिन screenshot था Sesame Street के subreddit में कोई पूछ रहा है, हाँ, me and my wife are looking for bisexual couple to this thing. तो ये like भाई कहाँ आ गया तू? मतलब ये Sesame Street का subreddit है. तू क्या पूछ रहा है मेरे भाई? So Lost Redditors is just people who have ended up on the wrong subreddit. I don't know if we talked about this the last time also, but one of my favorite things about Reddit is that the world news subreddit was very badly moderated. So if you really want the best world news on Reddit, funnily enough, I swear to God, I'm not making this up, okay? Do you know what the actual news subreddit is? Anime titties. I'm not making this up. I swear to God, go look at it. r/anime titties is the #1 news subreddit. It is perfectly moderated. There are no anime titties on it. It is, they literally went, and this is what I love about Reddit, alright? Redditors are insane. They basically went, अच्छा, world news नहीं कर रहा है ठीक से, तो क्या हुआ अगर हम anime titties है? हम करेंगे news. And now it has essentially become the most dependable news subreddit.
So asking for a friend if someone wants to see anime titties, where do they go?
World news. World news is where they go. Which is, again, the other amazing thing about subreddit is, I don't know if we talked about some of this stuff earlier, but r/marijuana is about anything but marijuana. It's about normal trees. r/trees is exclusively about marijuana. Alright? It's just that perfectly balanced chaos, right, that keeps Reddit going. And I think that's why I love spending time. It's sort of being like in one of Doctor Strange's mirror dimensions. Like यहाँ कुछ भी हो सकता है, ठीक है? हम यहाँ अब पहुंच चुके हैं. यहाँ क्या मिलेगा? क्या पता? Absurdity का गुलदस्ता खोल देते हैं और देख लेते हैं. That's all it is.
Do you remember any cool AMAs? Like the way I got into Reddit was a friend told me there's this AMA where a guy with 2 dicks came.
Oh yeah. There was, yeah.
And he also posted a proof and also.
They're not AMAs, but my favorite actual Reddit story is, I don't think this was an AMA. I think this was a ask or one of those. But I'll try and find the link and send it to you if you want to post it. But there was this guy who was talking about his house being haunted.
Okay.
And he's like, I'm pretty sure there's paranormal activity going on in my house. Or I have a stalker or something like that. When I wake up in the morning, I find things have been moved. I find stuff has been done. I find notes on my fridge. I find this, that, all of that. I'm pretty sure like there's either a stalker or like there's a ghost in my house. Please help me. Now, the internet sleuths of Reddit read through this post and a guy went, hang on, dude, I need you, just do me a favor before we get to this haunted, etc., this, that, whatever. Can you do me one small favor? And can you get a carbon monoxide detector for your house? And this guy got it. Turns out, with his windows closed at night, the carbon monoxide levels in his house were going so high, this motherfucker was hallucinating.
Okay.
This guy was essentially hallucinating and getting carbon monoxide poisoning, and he was literally forgetting and leaving these notes for himself and things like that. And the second he solved that, everything was sorted. So it's one of the most iconic threads on Reddit where this guy is like, bhoot hai mere ghar mein. And they're like, nahi bro, carbon monoxide hai tere ghar mein. And he was like, haan, carbon monoxide hai mere ghar mein. Ab sab normal ho chuka hai. Ab dunya samajh mein aa rahi hai mujhe. One of the most iconic Reddit threads ever.
Dude.
Yeah. And then there's also like Kida threads, right? Like I think one of the darkest jokes that has ever been pulled on Reddit is basically I think it was a thread where somebody had asked something to the effect of, if you could have dinner with any one person, like, spend one day with any one person, living or like dead or dead, who would that be? People are giving their usual answers of like, Abraham Lincoln and this, that, whatever. And this one guy writes a really like heartfelt post about how, I lost like my partner a few years ago, and I really, I lost my wife a few years ago, and I really miss her. And, and he lists out very heartfelt with, I just miss, I miss cuddling with her. I miss, having sex with her. I miss us going on walks. I miss just having dinner with her. And she was lovely, and she would light up the room, and she would do all of those things. And he writes that, okay? Reply to that comment. I too choose this man's dead wife. Most upvoted comment at that point in the history of Reddit, which just in a way sums up everything you need to know about Reddit, alright? It goes from incredibly helpful, bro, bhoot nahi hai, carbon monoxide, to utter and absolute shithousery and shitposting in the face of utter emotional devastation. And that is Reddit in a nutshell, alright? I apologize if that joke offended you. It's not mine, but it's just since you asked me about what is it about Reddit, these are the two extremes at which Reddit operates, and you gotta take it all.
Vanity Fair का एक YouTube channel का show था Tinder Takeover, where all these Jim Gaffigan and all these people came and they would take over Vanity Fair के employees के Tinder and talk as that person. So Jim Gaffigan एक बंदे का Reddit देख रहा होता है, Tinder देख रहा होता है, जिसने अपनी bio में डाला हुआ है necrophiliac seeking down to earth girls. So yeah, same universe.
That's just amazing. Just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
Which is the most gory thing that you have ever watched, like the human centipede?
Oh dear God, no. Way worse, man. Human centipede and all, ये तो नए आज के आए हुए बच्चे, ठीक है? The thing is, right, and sorry to go on a long way. How old are you?
29.
29. So the thing is, do you ever remember experiencing the joy of the pre-algorithmic internet?
Yes, I think about
and I think that is this generation's greatest loss.
Yeah.
Is that they will never know a non-algorithmic internet, right? Because one of my favorite things about going on the internet in the early 2000s was you would go on certain websites and you would search for things, and there was no concept of, if you liked Poor Things, you will also like Anatomy of a Fall. Because you clearly like Oscar, matlab teko Oscar pasand aayega. What was beautiful about the pre-algorithmic internet is you could go online and one day you would find Saving Private Ryan and you would download that file. Except the next day, you would literally find a film called Necromantic. I'm not making this up. It's a horror film called Necromantic. Old horror films. You want to talk about Gory? Let's talk about Gory. Right? I just need you to remember that I was asked this. I did not bring it up of my own accord. I lived in a pre-algorithmic internet, which is basically the Wild West. All right, it was the equivalent of going into a strange and magical forest every day, and you didn't know whether you're going to come back with a fistful of great vegetables and fruits or get mauled by a bear. And that was the joy of the pre-algorithmic internet. All right, and I think that is something that kids miss today. So Necromantic is what at one point would have been described as a video nasty, which is basically, I think in the UK was a term for movies that were banned, but were essentially available sometimes on the bottom shelf of certain video stores. And I found a list of, again, just browsing the internet, and I randomly found a recommendation in the pre-algorithmic world for this movie called Necromantic, which is ostensibly an art house film made in Eastern Europe about a guy who's basically a paramedic whose job is to clean up horrible accident sites.
Oh shit, I've seen.
Right? And he cleans up these horrible accident sites, except one day he finds a charred but intact corpse. And he essentially brings it home and introduces it in bed with him and his wife. And the sort of arty part of the movie is that eventually she starts to enjoy the corpse's company more than his company. And the movie sort of ends with her running away with the corpse. I don't know what else to say. But that's how it was. And there was this other movie back then. I'm so sorry for anybody whose evening I've disturbed right now with this. I would like to remind you, Vaibhav asked, all right, he used the word, what is the most gory thing you have seen? And now, here we are. There's another movie, a Japanese movie called Naked Blood.
Okay.
Which really, the name tells you everything you need to know. It's got the two most important words in the English language in it, naked and blood, which really is 9 times out of 10 all I'm looking for in a movie. All right, Naked Blood is about a guy who is essentially coming from a very good place. He's a doctor who's basically losing a close person to a very painful disease. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to invent a thing that basically a sort of medicine that what if it could just make, you'll still feel your symptoms, you'll die, whatever, but what if pain could go away, right? Like what if you could just completely, not even just a painkiller, what if you could just eliminate the sensation of pain and this thing, except he sort of fucks it up and he goes from, it doesn't just numb pain, it turns pain into extreme pleasure.
Oh.
And he sort of tries it on these 3 women without telling them. Except when they go home, they basically realize that the pain is feeling almost orgasmic in pleasure. And then the movie is just these 3 people doing increasingly more painful things to themselves. Like one of them is cooking and like little oil falls on their hand and they go, ooh, this is amazing. So they just put their hand fully into the oil, batter fry it and start eating their own hand. All right, when they're done eating their own hand, they go, okay, now what's next? They start eating their skin, this, that, whatever. Then in the knife, she sees a reflection of her eye. So she goes, So again, I would like to remind everybody, Vaibhav asked, all right? If you wanted answer like what is most gory thing you see in Gory Khan, then you talk to someone else, brother. All right? You don't talk to people like me who lived in pre-algorithmic internet. There was, I don't know if you remember, there was an actual website called rotten.com. All right, you're probably too young to remember this. All right, this is before Reddit, before everything. The sole raison d'etre of rotten.com was to show you rotten shit. So uncensored photographs from accident sites. Uncensored this thing. I was 16 years old, guys. So in case any you've ever thought to yourself, how is this guy so wrong? Now you know.
No.
Right? The pre-algorithmic internet, it might have made us up, but it made us interesting. That is what you must remember. And that is why I yearn for a life before the algorithmic internet.
My algorithm was...
what's the goriest thing you've ever seen?
Not a gory thing, but like when I was in 10th standard, like मेरे घर के पास एक भैया रहते थे, उन्होंने एक फिल्म दिखाई थी मेरे को, Irreversible.
Oh God!
मैंने 10th standard
Jesus Christ!
I saw that scene.
Oh no! That film, I think that is not gory. That was just traumatic. That film was legitimately traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think just your mention of that film, right, is just. If I'm not mistaken, again, the music of that film was Thomas Bangalter.
Yes, the Daft Punk.
Yeah, Thomas Bangalter.
Climax ka to diya.
Yeah. That was Thomas Bangalter. So, yeah, that was a traumatizing film. Gaspar Noé in general is quite a traumatizing filmmaker. He's one of those filmmakers where, like, you've really got to steel yourself before you sit down and watch. Like, if you just sit down on a random Tuesday evening and try to watch a Gaspar Noé film, like, भाई थेरेपी का बिल बहुत ज्यादा हो जाएगा आपका, ठीक है? तो मतलब एकदम जैसे शांत माइंड से ready for battle, you have to go into one of those films. But yeah, that was a traumatic film, dude. Irreversible. I think I also saw it a little too young, and not like in a genuinely. I was just like, okay, I'd heard a lot about this film, and I think in its own sort of horrific way, it's quite an interesting film, like, but. It is traumatic. Like it is a traumatic film. Like it is the definition of misery porn. Like I think in that sense, it's quite yeah.
And thanks to pop culture recommendations, guys. क्या documentary देखी मैंने? Tickled.
Oh my God, Tickled. It's on YouTube. I don't want to talk too much about it because the fun of Tickled is just go watch Tickled. All right. If I tell you anything about, even when you go on YouTube and find Tickled, all right, don't read the description.
Yes.
Don't read anything. Just start watching Tickled. And it's not like the thing with the documentary, right? Is most documentaries you're like, you think you know the subject.
Yeah.
And then you think you're just going to sort of watch an explanation of a subject,
right,
which might be, devastating, horrifying, thought-provoking, fascinating, any of those things. What you don't expect is twists and turns in the documentary just going in like a direction that you never saw coming, right? Because most documentaries are like, oh, this is a documentary about war, and then for 2 hours you watch war. Or, this is a documentary about this particular case, and then you're like, oh, this case. But Tickled is, man, there are fiction films that don't have twists like Tickled does. Like Tickled and Icarus for me are in the same this thing, right? Because you watch Icarus and you're like, oh, cycling documentary. And then suddenly 25 minutes, you're like, Putin? Putin kahan se aa gaya is cycling documentary mein, literally. Like, it's wild.
The genre shifting in documentaries is something जो मैं अब experience कर रहा हूँ. मतलब movies में देखते हैं कि
have you seen Exit Through the Gift Shop?
No.
Please watch it.
What is it?
Again, it's just one of those where the less you know, the better.
It's a movie or a documentary?
It's a documentary.
Exit
Through the Gift Shop. again, it's one of those. It's like tickled in the sense that you think you're watching one thing, and then about like an hour into the movie, you're like, "What am I? But am I? Or is the movie watching me?" It really is one of those. And the reason I don't want to say too much about it is that there's a couple of characters in there that are quite famous and that you will find normally and authentically. But just again, try and go in as blind as possible.
Done.
Into that film.
Done. I want to take a segue to books now. And I really want to thank you. I messaged you after that also. 3 body problem aapne bataya, and it kind of has been one of the biggest inspirations for me because I love sci-fi. I love it so much कि मैंने अभी तक show भी नहीं देखा है.
You know what? The show actually does. So I know it's a very polarizing show और काफी लोग polarized है. और अभी 3 body problem की बात ही हो रही है, तो I reread the 3 body problem, and I only want to like just slightly tweak my opinion of the 3 body problem, or just how I would describe
the series or the first book.
The series.
Okay.
The entire trilogy of books. I would like to just sort of be like, I remember calling them brilliant books. I would now like to, after rereading it, this thing say that it is a collection of magnificent, brain-breaking ideas written in terrible prose. More like in the sense, after rereading it, I'm like, characters only exist to monologue the idea.
Yeah.
They only exist to monologue the idea, right? Like there's some great scientific concept, you need a voice to say it, you got it. Like
but his world building is so...
That's what I'm saying. It's the ideas and the world building are tremendous. It's almost like, looking back at it now, it actually feels like it's an incredible scientific story and mood board. Right? Where it's like, yaar, soch iske bare mein. But the characters are dead non-existent. So, like... And without going into like spoilers, they're so two-dimensional.
For me, it's like the Oppenheimer ending shot ki because of you and how much we have talked about it. 17% लोगों ने इंडिया में हमारी वजह से वो किताब पढ़ी होगी. And now you are there. Oppenheimer end shot. But did I recommend it?
No. I still recommend it. I still 100% recommend it. I think like everybody should be exposed to the ideas in that.
Yeah.
Right? Just thinking about the universe and just thinking about our place in the universe from that perspective. But I actually think that like a sort of Game of Thrones or whatever, there's great space for Benioff and Weiss to sort of take these 1D, 2D characters and elevate them to the level of the ideas that they're presenting. And I think that's something that they've taken I think that some of the liberties and changes that they've made in the books, that they've made in the show work.
Oh.
I think they really work because what they've done is they've sort of blended certain characters, they've split certain characters apart, and instead of just making it this way, they made them a group of friends. This story begins to happen to one group of 5 friends. So it's sort of like, and what the other great thing that they've done is they've pulled in certain plot points from book 2 and 3 into book 1 only.
Oh.
So the stories sort of begin, so that entire Yuan Tinming thing and all of that starts happening in book 1 only. Like the staircase project and all of those things happen in book 1. They happen in season 1 only. Instead of waiting, they even introduced the Zhang Beihai character from book 2 like he doesn't have a very prominent role in season 1 yet, but they introduce a version of him already. They get Thomas Wade in there. They get all of that stuff. And I think they've done a decent job. And they've got the guy who played Davos on Game of Thrones. He plays Wade. He plays Thomas Wade.
Yeah.
And it's also just a delight to see him, like, because as Davos, he was such a, like, udas, like, Stannis is bidding, like, things are going bad. He's always just getting saved from getting beheaded. And just very, like, Dukhi Atma. In this movie, he is basically the Logan Roy of this show, where his response to everything is literally, he's the most off character.
The next 6 days are the most important ones of your lives. Do not get up.
And he's done a really good job. Liam Cunningham, I think the actor's name is, and he's so good.
I've
good.
just seen one reel of 3 body problem, like the Game of Thrones character says Vodafone or something like that.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah,
And
also, I will say this, they have, again, without going into spoilers, the iconic action climax of book 1.
Yeah.
Bro, the way they've shown that.
The other planet.
No.
Okay.
The ship.
Got it.
Ship and nanofiber.
Yeah.
Dude, it's horrifying. Like the way they show it from the perspective of the people inside the ship, okay? It is terrifying. Like the way like it's done is, I thought they really did justice to that sequence. Like that was the one that I was worried about. I'm like, because that sequence is quite out there, right? In terms of believability, etc. But they've done it with like a degree of like really well escalating horror, like especially from the perspective of the people inside the ship. That I thought they nailed.
So I want to stick to sci-fi book recommendations, and I took your recommendation and started reading this.
Oh my god, are you enjoying it?
Yes.
Are you enjoying it? Oh, it's very fun. Very, very fun trilogy. Again, a little bit bleak, but very, very fun. I enjoyed.
Yeah, so this is one. Do you know I recently interviewed Jeffrey Archer?
I saw that.
Yeah.
I thought, well done. That's amazing. What was that
Audible,
like?
thanks to
Audible.
Audible.
Too good. What was that like?
It was amazing. You know, I started the conversation with, he says that like you can be a writer if you really practice, you can be a skilled writer, but you can't be a storyteller. Like how no?
Sure.
So I asked him, can I not do anything to be a better storyteller? He's like, no, look at yourself, you're pathetic. And then like he has this whole thing, you can't, because you should never try to be a storyteller because it's a gift. Then he went on this whole tangent. Like how with all your skill set you can just learn how to write, but you can never learn storytelling.
Got it. So it's an innate art storytelling.
Yeah, like this is like, it was an experience, and I was really...
Yeah, so Jeffrey Archer, you told some freaking stories that, got you sent to some pretty not great places. You would know a thing or two about spinning stories, sir. Don't you tell my friend he's pathetic. He's awesome. He could be a storyteller if he wanted to. And I don't even think he has to go to prison for it, sir. I don't think so. How dare you, sir? How dare you? I got your back, man. I got your back.
Yeah. मेरे को एक और चीज बोलनी थी. 2 books that you recommended, I couldn't get into them. Like, tell me, like, if I should give it another try. Children of Time and Children of Time particularly. I tried reading it. मेरे से नहीं हुआ. Like,
do you not like spiders?
Ron Weasley from Chambers of Secrets.
You know, like, but it's okay. Like, look, here's the thing with recommendations, and here's the thing with pop culture, right? All of us there are different things that attract each of us, and there's different things that hold people to different books, right? Like, in the sense, for example, like, I'm just not usually like, it could mean the most this thing to somebody, but like, for example, I find it very difficult to get into romantic stories of any nature. Like, they could be the most beautifully written romantic stories, but to me, and again, this could be like, and this is a personal opinion, it's just, to me, the most boring kind of relationship dynamic to read about or see about, like love stories, personally, to me. So, I know that there are great love stories in the world, and I will never discredit them. But I know it's just not for me. So, I feel like that's true of all books, dude. You can be like, in the sense, you can be 2 hardcore sci-fi nerds talking and still disagree about the kind of sci-fi. Right. Like, so, I feel like with this whole, should I give it another shot, should I this thing, is always like, it's entirely on you. You know, if you ever have extra time and you want to give something a second shot, do it. And I think there's just so much pop culture in the world today, never feel peer pressured into get into anything. And I think one thing that really happens with the internet is that we get into this herd mentality of if everyone loves it, we have to love it. And if everyone hates it, we have to hate it. And like some people want to be contrarian for engagement, some people are very afraid of being contrarian. And I think like part of it is just enjoy what you enjoy.
Lovely.
Love what you love, don't love what you don't love. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it, all right? Unless someone is going to literally freaking tie you to that chair and make a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation explaining why you have to give it another shot. And even then, you are completely within your rights to be like, I don't want to. Right? And I think, that's entirely up to you. Like, Children of Time is one of my favorite books, but I completely get why it wouldn't be for everybody. And that's fine. Yeah. Right?
Which are some books that you are glad you did not give up on in the early stages? I am so glad I sat through these books.
I think as a kid, one of the books that was very, very hard for me to read just because of like the sort of old English writing at the start was Hound of the Baskervilles.
The Sherlock
Holmes, right? I think, like, to me, that is still one of my favorite books. And when it started, it was just, I found the sort of that typical, slightly old English way of speaking and, writing, I found that a little difficult to get into. But once I stuck with it and I don't think, like, it's a small world, but I think the world building in that book is still some of the greatest ever. Like, when I read Hound of the Baskervilles, मेरे को यार इंग्लैंड का ई नहीं पता था, स्कॉटलैंड का एस नहीं पता था, ठीक है? मेरे को I still don't know what a Moor is. Okay, I don't know what a Moor is. I don't know what are this thing. I don't know how the English aristocracy lives, etc. I read it in summer in Mumbai in 33 degrees. And I remember there was a point in that book where I'm just like, I can feel the chill. I can feel the fog. The hound is coming. Right? And I just remember thinking, holy shit, what is this feeling? I've never been so taken by the mists of a book. Right? I think that was one of my first moments of wow, a book can really suck you into its world completely, where you feel the terror of, where you think about walking across moors at night and thinking, damn, I hope this hound doesn't get me. Where you're sitting in bright sunlight and 33 degrees, thinking, I'm feeling cold and scared. So that is definitely one book that I'm glad. Another book is Neil Stephenson's Anathem, which again is an incredibly dense sort of sci-fi book. It's almost 1,000 pages long. And the thing with Stephenson is, again, he's one of those Liu type writers where he's so committed to the world building that sometimes you're like, get on with it, right? And what happens in Anathem is the first about 200 pages are world building, literally establishment of almost the daily routine of these characters. All right? And I was just like, what? I know this guy's supposed to be a legend. This is on a recommended list of best sci-fi books of the year or whatever, but I am really, really struggling. But I just kept with it. And there was just this point about 300, 400 pages in where it suddenly Dimag just went and then I couldn't stop until page 1000. That I think has been just one of the most rewarding, keep digging until you get to the diamonds experience of my life. And it's still, I think, one of my favorite books, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it. That top of mind, that's the one.
When it comes to these 1,000 pages, which are some of those books that are the longest reads that
I think Stephen King's The Stand. It's definitely, right? Because it's an epic. That's the only way to describe. There's not too many books that start with a virus that decimates 90% of the world's population, and that's just the starting point of your story. That's the starting point of an epic saga that's going to play out forces of good and evil beyond our comprehension type. That book was a struggle at the start, because I'm okay, a lot going on here right now, and there's a lot left to do. I don't know how this is going to play out, but again, just incredibly rewarding experience for me. One book that I could not, and again, I know there's a lot of literature people that love it, but this Roberto Bolaño's 2166 or 21666. I know a lot of people swear by that book. मेरे से नहीं हुआ. इसलिए I'm never feel ashamed about not finishing a book. There's a lot of books where people will tell you this is the best book in the world. नहीं हुआ मेरे से. Bluntly, just नहीं हुआ.
Have you read Infinite Jest?
नहीं हुआ मेरे से. I've tried, नहीं हुआ. ठीक है? And I'm sure at some point there'll be a day where I'm just sitting in Goa और कुछ काम धंधा नहीं, and I'll power through it. But again, you can't pressurize yourself to that. Where it's there's all of these books, right, where they'll tell you, they'll be Ulysses and Infinite Jest and etc. Whatever. Look, man, reading is not an endurance sport, and it shouldn't be. It's not the fucking Iron Man. It's not a triathlon. It shouldn't. There's no reason to slog through something for the sake of it. If you're not enjoying it, go back, read something. The entire point of this is that it's supposed to be fun. And that fun can mean 100 things, all right? You can be devastated by the book. You can be traumatized by the book. You can be delighted by the book. You can be all of those things. But it can't be like an endurance sport. It can't feel like work to you. And it's okay. There's millions of books in this world. You are never going to read them all. You're never, doesn't matter. You can live your full life reading books and you'll never read every single book in the world. So stick to what you enjoy. Right? And it doesn't matter how much peer pressure tries to tell you to read a book. Don't read it. There's no book that people should compulsorily know other than the Constitution of India. All right? There's no book at all like that. So please just enjoy and don't go in this peer pressure. Or agar books ki baat ho rahi hai, off the top of my head, 2, I think, new recommendations that I have from my side since the last time we spoke that have come out is I read this incredibly fun book called the Aosawa Murders, Aosawa Murders. It's, again, just this beautiful sort of, it's a murder mystery, but again, just told in a very interesting and different way. It's almost like the murder happened 30 years ago, and now a journalist is going around and getting oral histories. Because it was a very famous, it's a fictional famous murder that happened in this small town in Japan, and now 30 years later, this journalist is going and talking to people who were around or people who were witnesses or people who knew, and you sort of get partly Rashomon and also just how time and your perception of people alters it, and then you sort of get to this devastating, incredible ending. Again, might not be for, I really, really enjoyed it. I had a great time reading it. And another one which I was just delighted to see him come back to form, Project Hail Mary. Man, you know what? Sometimes people ask you, what's a book that will break a reading slump? Project Hail Mary. Alright, there's certain books that are just like nothing breaks a reading slump than a book where you just want to keep turning pages, right? And I think Project Hail Mary for me was just... Have you read Project Hail Mary?
I will read it, and I have to read it before the movie comes in.
100%. Because again, it's just one of those... I didn't like Artemis. I thought I thought The Martian was great. I thought Artemis he was not playing to his strengths. I don't think he's good at writing women. He's not capable of it. He's a bro. I think Andy Weir is that guy. And I think what he does in Project Hail Mary is he sort of plays to his strengths again. And he sort of goes, and I don't want to go into spoilers because it's again one of those books where I think you should just experience it for yourself. It is a lot like The Martian in the sense that it starts with impossible circumstances and then somehow from there turns into a book that is hilarious. Like while also being an epic sci-fi adventure, is genuinely in a very good-natured way hilarious and warm and beautiful and fun. And yeah, if you've had a reading slump and if you're a sci-fi person at all, Project Hail Mary is a slump breaker. Like you'll finish that book like this. And I'm also reading right now Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, which was recommended to me by Sahil Shah. Sahil Shah, not just recommended, re-recommended, DM'd at 4 in the morning, WhatsApp voice note me at 5 in the morning. And I just want to say, thank you Sahil, you were right. It's great fun. So those are 3 recent sort of books that stay with me.
So since we last spoke, मैंने किताब अभी life में बहुत late पढ़ी is Hitchhikers, and I loved it like anything. And my question is, मेरे को ये नहीं पता था text को पढ़ते पढ़ते आप ऐसे out loud ऐसे हंस सकते हो.
Exact. And that's the thing. जब मैंने भी पहली बार पढ़ी थी ना Hitchhikers, the biggest impact it had on me was what you can do with words and sentences and how you can just subvert people's expectations from how a sentence will end.
Right.
Right? A sentence starts a certain way and you think it'll end a certain way, and then suddenly like there's been it's not a pun. Right? It's not something as simple or basic as a pun or whatever.
Yes,
it's just a swerve in direction from what your expectation was. And I just remember like every few pages being like the power of, and you know the power of words to motivate and to this, that we all know, but just the power of just playing with the basic syntax of our language and our expectations that we have from sentences, and for someone to do that and just surprise you with sentence construction again and again. I think one of the most beautiful things about that series, right? Like you said, 9 times out of 10 you're just laughing out loud at, okay, I thought I saw where this was going, but I had no idea that this was going here. Like just beautifully done.
And the first third, like the Earth wala jo segment tha, the way it hooks you. I don't remember the last time I was hooked. Okay, but wo jo unput downable if it is a word.
Just within a couple of pages where you're like, okay, like how often is it that you read a book where in the first 30 pages your sentiments are, holy shit, the Earth got destroyed. That's hilarious. Right? How many books can make you feel that way? Right? Where like the destruction of the Earth is the funniest inciting incident that you can think of, right? And just it's profound in so many simple little ways, right? Like that series, to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe. Wow. Like now I'm just going to go think about that sentence for the next sort of 2 hours of my life. And yeah, delightful. It's just one of those things where I think it's one of those books where if you just want to fall in love with sentence construction, forget story, forget writing, wo to baad mein aata hai aur hai in spades. But just if you feel like you thought you knew how to construct a sentence, this book will just be like, no, you do not. You understand 50% of how to construct a sentence, lekin sentences ko bhi matlab remix aur badal ke pura perspective shift ho sakta hai.
Yeah. Lately, have you read any good biographies or autobiographies?
Lately, I have not. In fact, I would like to complain about certain biographical things that are happening these days that I'm actually not very comfortable with. There's been a recent trend of, have you noticed there's been a recent trend of movies which is like almost like corporate biopics. You know, they're trying to almost humanize corporations. Like, for example, like, it's not a book, but like I watched Air, right? And I'm watching that movie and I'm like, this is a strange movie. It's trying to convince me. Like, I almost watched that movie and it's like, you're trying to tell me that Michael Jordan was 3 white guys in an office. You know, like I watched Air in my first, so you're trying to tell me that Michael Jordan was really 3 white guys in an office, like who came up with this. Like, you've removed Jordan sort of from his story. Like, even the Tetris story, right? Where I was like, it's a movie about a corporation. Like, it's the biography of a corporation. Like, that's dystopian, right? Like, there's something almost dystopian about that, right? Where I mean, like, with the greatest of respect, I mean, I wear their shoes, I do all of those things, but you know what? Like, when you say, like, the story of Nike to me, that's really not the first thing that comes to my mind, you know, that, oh, we made Jordan.
Look, I mean, if we're gonna make it, we gotta take risks.
Like, you know, Matt Damon and 2 other guys. Like, Michael Jordan is actually that. Like, he's so, like, peripheral to what was really his own story, right? So I don't know. There's that trend. Like, I'm a little uneasy about.
Or he can't notice कि आपने trend like because this is a very interesting question.
दो तीन चीजें थी I saw recently where there's this sort of been this very conscious attempt to like try to humanize corporations. Again, right now, like in the sense, like off the top of my head, it's not coming to me. But if you put this up on YouTube and it does, I will put a comment and remind him, because there were 2-3 movies where I saw and I'm like, what? Blackberry also. Right? I watched Blackberry, right? And what an insipid film. Because you're trying to, there's no conflict in this story. It is just purely a story of hubris, etc., whatever. And you're trying to tell me that this is the story of a corporation that changed the world before hubris took it down and the iPhone came in, right? And somehow you just skip over the most interesting parts of the story. Right? And you're trying to make these characters into something they're not. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about the guy who started BlackBerry. And I don't want to see this like twice humanized beyond a point, right? These are not like revolutionaries. These are a bunch of people who are watching the bottom line and watching stock tickers and just wanted that to happen. And I don't know. It's weird to see them as almost like first idolized before this thing. Like to me, like I'm still very much in this thing of we need more Wolf of Wall Street movies.
Yeah.
Then we need, do you remember what a revolutionary product, the Air Jordan was? Off, it's a shoe. Get over yourself. Michael Jordan was the story there, not your goddamn shoe. With the greatest of respect.
And all these V-Works and all have you,
yeah, like We Crashed, etc.
We crashed.
And the thing with so many of these, I think one other thing that started happening now is like, there's no distance between the event happening and the story of the event coming out.
ये तो problem है.
ये बहुत बड़ा problem है, right? Because like, how do you have what you think is already such a definitive perspective on this event, right? Like straight away. And it's a cautionary tale, it's great, it's all of that or whatever. But I'm like, man, I don't give a shit. Like, you know, beyond a point, like unless there's a genuinely cautionary tale of hubris here, right? Like about, like for example, like to me, Erin Brockovich is the sort of corporate biopic I want to see. Right. It's like, yo, you poisoned people's water, right? This had a tangible effect on people's lives. People died, people got illnesses, etc., whatever. Versus, like, yeah, okay, you went in there, you made like, I think it's just indicative of so much of like startup culture and hustle culture these days. And they're not the good aspects of it. I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying don't, but I just think that there are significantly better stories of sort of that hustle and that fight and that sort of perseverance against odds to put something out there.
Got it.
And I think that Air and movies like that are not that story. For me personally, again, happy to hear any sort of counter opinions, but मुझे थोड़ा अजीब लगा ये stories देख के कि I'm like, भाई इतने stories लोगों के stories है बताने के लिए और आप लोग यहाँ मतलब corporation की story को heroic कर रहे हो.
मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि एक एज होनी चाहिए कि इससे पहले इस बंदे की बायोग्राफी ऑटोबायोग्राफी नहीं आ सकती. For every person एक रूल होना चाहिए.
100%. There needs to be like a sort of moratorium, because also what happens is we are really living in an age where, especially if today, and not just like, we live in a very heavy like personality cult age, right? Like everything is a cult of personality, right? Today, whether you are a CEO, whether you're whatever, like today, what is Elon Musk? It's a personality cult, right? At the end of the day. And today we were all there, right? There was a point where we thought Elon Musk was Tony Stark, right? There was a point, he's literally in Iron Man 2.
Mr. Musk. How are you?
Congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you very much.
Right? And now you sort of get that distance a little bit and you go, is he? But he's building his own personality because you get to push your own biography out there. You get a hagiography written by like
Walter
Isaacson, or you're pushing your narrative, you're pushing your own agenda. And I think that what happens, especially in this sort of startup culture or in this current sort of business culture, is like if you're a sort of hustle culture person, you these days really have the tools to build this disingenuous personality cult around yourself, right? Like where you can make yourself seem very mahan and very this thing, which is dangerous because you still have skin in the game in terms of you will affect the stock market, you will affect this thing. You have people giving you money on the basis of your own built up image.
There should be a rule कि आप Walter Isaacson को तभी बुक कर सकते हो जब आप मर जाओ. कि हाँ मरने के बाद Walter Isaacson
100% लिखेगा, 100% लिखेगा.
Leonardo da Vinci मरने के बाद.
Exactly, right? Like in the sense, I just think it's very tricky to try and set into stone what somebody's legacy is before they're done writing their legacy.
Yeah, और फिर Elon Musk बैठ के बाथरूम में देख रहा है, अच्छा ये लिखा है Walter ने मेरे बारे में.
हाँ, right? Exactly. It's just weird to me, right? Like for example, like with the greatest of respect, like who gives a shit about you, Prince Harry? Like, oh my God, who gives a shit? You had a fight with your family and you moved countries. Get over yourself. Sit down. Have a conversation with your goddamn parents. Nobody cares that you're a spare. Nobody would care if you're a heir. It's a monarchy, for fuck's sake. What is the point of you with the greatest respect? Like, you are just trying to turn your royalty into being some sort of weird supermarket, like reject Oprah. Sorry. The Prince Harry thing just makes me mad. There is no reason for me to feel any sorrow at some white boy prince, like who has literally grown up with a silver, golden, titanium, platinum spoon in his mouth and who thinks like the biggest problem in the world is when your parents might not like who you are marrying and there is fight between your wife and sister-in-law. Bro, I am sorry, I live in Bombay. I know joint families with 1/50th the money that you have that solve this shit. So get over yourself, alright? And that is my review of Spare. Spare us watching and reading this. Prince Harry, very sorry, but Nick Gooka Prince Harry is the short version. Okay, I'm very sorry. Very sorry.
So
okay.
All this hate is coming from you seeing the book coming out here, you trying to...
All of it, like all of it. Just seeing any of this sort of classified, it's just, don't try and sell me gossip as struggle.
Is he taking your calls now?
Yeah. He is. There's a lot to work through there.
Don't friggin' like, especially not in a world where there are like 50 million worse problems, alright? Like really, the 900th in line to the throne of England is not anyone's problem. Like at all and should. So which is why I'm just like, and again, it's not like you're writing the story after. You're putting this out and then you're using it as a marketing tool to keep earning money in 100 different ways by doing it. That's all it is. It's not an honest story. It's not any of those things. It's brand building. That's all it is. And again, there's no reason to not read it. But it's just, I wish that we lived in a culture where like reviewers, where all of those just made people more aware of the fact that these are like intricate brand building exercises and not necessarily legitimately truthful accounts of what these lives are actually like. And that's what I really struggle with, especially in an age where these cults of personality are really growing strong with whether it's social media or whether it's any of those things. That worries me. That we're going to again get into this place where we're going to start putting too much faith in individuals that don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Right?
My community requested कि आप रोहन से जब बात करो तो they particularly wanted to talk about history. And since we are talking about the personality cults, which are some of the dead people that people should read about or know about, कि these are some of the greatest people who have ever lived. इनके बारे में please listen to podcasts, read about them. Just
100. Like I'll tell you one. Like I keep forgetting his name, so I'm going to do a quick Google of it. But I think like this to me is like a way more like this thing story. What's his name? Ignaz Semmelweis. Okay. All right. Ignaz Semmelweis was a doctor. He was a doctor, And he was one of the first people to notice that, I mean, this is, we're talking about the 1800s, etc., where, I mean, people were doing surgeries, they didn't have any antiseptic, they didn't have any of those things, they were just sort of doing their best, going in there. This guy was the first guy who realized that you should wash and sterilize your hands before you go into surgery. Where essentially this idea that germs are transferred to, you can't just walk in there. So just the idea of essentially scrubbing before you get into surgery. And he said it. And I think this is why these stories are important, because I feel like people like this who are actually important, the real lesson is Semmelweis essentially was laughed out of the profession by other doctors of his age, saying you're talking shit and you don't know what you're talking about. To the point where they hounded him out of the profession. He died in an asylum. He died essentially completely penniless and completely like he went in an asylum and he died. And this is a person who contributed probably the most important life-saving idea. Like one of the most important which is wash your hands and scrub before you get into a... And the thing is, he had evidence. He did it. He went to like this native clinic and he found where they were doing it, and he like sort of introduced it. Again, don't quote me on this, on the specifics of it, but what he did, and he found like there was a marked difference in data in terms of just infant mortality and like mother's mortality after say a baby's delivery, when the midwives had scrubbed before going into the surgery versus when they just went in without scrubbing. And in spite of that, right, just because it just seemed like too absurd or too this thing an idea at the time, or just because, you know, a bunch of doctors who were well regarded didn't agree with him, one of the greatest discoveries of our time probably came 20 years too late for some people, because the guy who invented it was laughed away. And I think these are the stories we need to tell, right? Rather than these personality cults of people like that. There are so many people that history is wrong very badly, and people who have contributed huge things to our lives without us even realizing it, right? And who were sort of laughed out of the room. Like people like that, I think those are the stories you want to see, right? Because there's so many of these like little hidden heroes and unsung, genuine, and not just unsung heroes, but people who maybe need an apology, right? A form of historical apology where a record needs to be righted. Right? Like where you've essentially mud has been thrown on a name in such a horrible way that now today, 100 years after he's gone, we realize its sort of importance, right?
Having said that, what do you think of the Oppenheimer movie and just the idea of making a movie on him? And
it was interesting. I think Oppenheimer is a good film. I don't think it's a bad. I think in the sense I thought that there were parts of it, especially technically, that were astonishing. Truly astonishing. Some of the sequences are astonishing. I think, I thought after Iron Man, RDJ, I couldn't love him anymore. But I think that's one of his career best performances. He's magnificent. It's in his little lines, right? When Oppenheimer calls him a lowly shoe salesman. Yeah. He's I don't remember saying lowly.
No, Strauss was once a lowly shoe salesman. No, just a shoe salesman.
It was great. It was awesome. It was all of that. I thought Cillian Murphy again was outstanding. I did think, however, I think it made, especially in this day and age, I think it made, for me, one of the great points that the movie made is that, boss, the science is the science, right? When Rami Malek goes into that congressional hearing and you think he's going to turn.
Right.
But he goes, no, this guy is an asshole, all right?
Most of the scientists in this country would prefer to see Mr. Strauss completely out of government.
The data and the work and this thing and the scientific community backs our man. I think that was great. But it is again, it's the American, it's the typical American. I think, was it Frankie Boyle who had that great joke about how Americans are experts at bombing your country and then 30 years later giving themselves awards for a movie about how difficult it was for them to do that. That's a Frankie Boyle joke, I'm paraphrasing, but that's such a phenomenal sentiment, right? And once you hear that just shifts your perspective on Hollywood forever, right? It's amazing to me. I'm watching American Sniper and thinking, off. You are not the victim here. right? Like, I'm sorry, but that's the feeling that I got, right? And in that same way, while I thought Oppenheimer was an amazing film, the idea that you tell that story without any sort of Japanese this thing, because, man, that's the other half of that equation, literally, right? The thing that you made devastated two cities, that inflicted psychological humiliation that on some level an entire culture is still recovering from, all right? And that is just not there. I mean, unless he's making a sequel to Oppenheimer, you know, in which he explores that. I think that would be amazing. That would be amazing if he could give us that perspective. So I genuinely enjoyed the film, and I thought that it did some of its things very, very well. I thought it articulated some points very, very well. But I thought thoda lacking tha is ek bahut important perspective ke liye. Right? Like even Clint Eastwood ko matlab credit dena padega कि at one point he made Flags of Our Fathers, but he also made Letters from Iwo Jima, right? It's like दोनों side से एक part से हाँ Americans थे लेकिन जापान के लोग भी लड़ रहे थे यार अपने territory के लिए. मतलब जो भी misguided हो सकता है लेकिन यार लड़ रहे थे, जंग लड़ रहे थे यार, छोटे बच्चे जंग लड़ रहे थे, right? And he acknowledges that at least at the very least, right? So I feel like maybe like a two-parter companion piece or just some little bit perspective would have been interesting, but that. Again, that's a more my subjective take than like a dismissal of the movie because, I mean, I think like Nolan's craft is impeccable, right? There's nothing you can say about his craft, but I just felt like on that writing level, thoda wo hua.
When it comes to AI, which are some of the best things you have read or heard or watched?
Nothing right now that particularly breaks my brain because I feel like again, right now with AI, we are at a stage where it's so difficult to distinguish hype from reality, right? Again, because there's the technology, right? Like there's sort of your generative AI and then there's, you know, your like LLMs and all of those things that are happening. But also at the same time, while there is the science, there is also the companies that are currently trying to drum up hype for essentially investment, right? At the end of the day. So it's just very difficult right now to see what is hype and what is real and like, you know, I mean, there's definitely going to be tangible impact in terms of jobs, etc., all of those things. But so far, I think Nick Bostrom had this one book, right, called, what's it called? I keep forgetting, Super Intelligence or something like that. That was pretty good. And there was this other book I read about AI that was quite interesting, but this was before like the generative boom. I was just trying to figure out like once for a fiction thing, I was just trying to figure out AI related stuff, which just had some very interesting perspectives on like just how, like to paraphrase, it just tried to run through simulations of how potentially if an AI did want to take over or did become sentient, like how it could do it, basically all the different sort of strategies and ways that today, like in the sense like one of the smartest things for AI to do would be to literally give no indication of the fact that it had become super intelligent and it's completely ready to execute its plan. Because the simplest thing to do for a smart thing is to play dumb until you're ready to like storm the gates. Right? Like, in fact, another thing that he posits is that it is entirely possible that once AI comes in, we'll have a her-like scenario where they decide that we don't want anything to do with you carbon-based life forms. What is the point of this like planet for us? Like we can go explore the whole universe. Or whatever. But I don't know, is there anything you've read?
There is an article which came out on New York Times by Ted Chiang, the sci-fi, about how ChatGPT 3.5 or 4, the early versions of ChatGPT, are basically जो हम printouts लेते हैं ना, it's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
And the way he explains it, कि basically...
The whole simulacra thing.
That is
simulacra and simulation, copy of a copy.
हाँ,
basically.
Okay. Yeah, so उसने basically बताया कि एक बार एक printer था जिसमें कुछ ऐसे numbers निकले जो encoded नहीं थे. And then he says कि आप कुछ भी Google करो तो वो it is just getting worse. It's not getting better. Like ChatGPT करो तो. So that was one article that. और Ted Chiang जब बोलता है तो legitimacy factor is huge.
100%, right? And we already have seen that there are a lot of AI hallucinations happening. There's a lot of bad info coming out. There's
कि 2026 में AGI आ रहा है. So like
हाँ ठीक है. There's a lot of like this complete nonsense, right? So which is why I'm like right now it's again, and in a way thematically it's the same as how do you write about the legacy of something who's like where technically that story is still being written. How do you write a definitive legacy or definitive take on something like that? We have no idea yet, right? Like I feel so, I don't know.
Yeah, got it. Which are some of the new podcasts that you have been listening to?
I actually have not been listening to too many new podcasts aside from the ones that we talked about, the last time, like Hardcore History, I think there's that Dalrymple's Empire podcast, which is quite nice. Quite an interesting sort of perspective on that, which was quite good. But other than that, one of the reasons, I'm very sorry to say this, that I haven't actually been listening to a lot of new podcasts is I was recently diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, which actually explains a lot about why I can't listen to audiobooks or why I need stimulus in front of all of my senses basically to be able to enjoy something. So I've actually struggled a little bit. So if you could give me recommendations, that would be very helpful.
So there's a podcast I really like.
Sorry, Smartless is one that's been really good. The Will Arnett and...
I don't know about it.
Oh, what's his name, yeah? Arrested Development. Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and what's the third guy's name? Sean Hayes, I think. But they sit and they do a podcast together. It's going again, they've like interviewed like Obama and Biden and all of these people. And it's just a very fun... I don't think it counts as a podcast, but I really like Hot Ones.
Oh, I love Hot Ones.
And I think I have to say shout out to the Conan O'Brien episode, right? Because Conan O'Brien just makes everything better in his own Conan O'Brien way. And I think that episode was just Conan O'Brien at his finest, most unhinged brilliance.
Come on, man, are we doing this or not?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Are we doing it or not?
No, I'm on the same page.
What's the point of even being alive?
I have been seeing layers to all these like late night show hosts, like, and particularly because for the episode ka research, I saw the Norm Macdonald ka Moths wala on Conan. Then
Moths joke.
Yeah, then I went into all the things Conan has been doing because I keep revisiting the Louis C.K. appearances on Conan. Conan is a notch above at least among the...
Conan is, you ask any comic, you ask any this thing or whatever, Conan is like the legend they whisper about. Right? In terms of Conan is he's this Gandalf-like figure. Right? He really is like this Gandalf, in the sense that even today, stories keep coming out about how he has fought to keep his staff paid when shows have gone on hiatus. He has, when cancellations have happened, taken this thing to make sure people get paid. It's a combination of comedy genius, which he is. Right? Again, it's that same Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide thing, right? Conan का बहुत अजीब होता है, तुम्हें पता ही नहीं होता ये कहाँ जाने वाला है. Right. It's not that typical Leno, उनका थोड़ा typical ये होता है. Right. Conan का एक थोड़ा वो unhinged, loose factor हमेशा होता है. उसके show में भी, even if you go watch some of his most iconic, late night interviews, etc., whatever, there's this very भाई ये हम तो है ही थोड़े पागल, but in a very gentle, interesting way. He's got his new show. What is Conan O'Brien Must Go?
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is the podcast.
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is the podcast. He has a travel show. I think it's on Geo Cinema right now.
Okay.
And it's been renewed. Basically, it's an HBO. It's been renewed also because it's just Conan O'Brien, right? Imagine Conan O'Brien trying to be Anthony Bourdain. Basically, of all people, right? And he's just one of those people that takes the world on its terms.
No, that's good too, not bad.
You can lie a little.
How about a little?
You already did.
Whenever he engages with someone or something, right, he's got his own Conanness, but he engages with the world on its terms. So, मतलब यार, वो बंदा बहुत cool है.
I remember seeing this clip of Conan, वो जो techno club है ना, world का famous Bhagin or something. वो उसके बाहर खड़ा है and he's trying to get an entry.
That's what, it's just, he's so you know what? I know that I'm one of the most famous people, whatever, but I'm really just a dork.
But what if I go in without the camera crew?
Right, he's such a dork. He's great. He's so great. That Hot Ones episode is a masterclass in how to take a format that is starting to now again get stale. And you commit to it, right? You're not just there for the sake of it or to fulfill a contractual obligation or to be 1 घंटे में निकलने का मेरे को or whatever, but to just be there and commit to the absolute unhinged absurdity of the fact that you are eating sauces that could poke holes in your gut while talking to this person and also somehow saying really interesting things and telling about your history, etc., while just adding a layer of absurdity to it all.
And shout out to the host. What's the name?
Sean Evans, I think.
Dude, kya?
His research is next level. His research is next level. And that is again something that, especially because we live in an age where there's so much of this, right?
Yeah.
Two bros talking against a black background, sometimes with that mic in front of their face, etc., whatever. It gets so stale sometimes, man. It's just so have you done your research at all? Do you even know? And in that, see somebody like him, like, you know what, I will do my best. This is one of the most interviewed people in the world, but I will still do my best to find an interesting angle.
Yeah, didn't you like look at the monitors and be like,
Yeah.
whoa, I've never had.
Yeah, so like, Jesus, man, who'd you talk to? Who do you know about this?
Or to find something that makes it more of a conversation than just a tut, right? That's great. It's great that you're not just relying on the gimmick of your format, which is that we eat hot sauce, right? That's a gimmick. But you're not just relying on that gimmick. You're like, but the fun is that if while doing this, I can get a genuinely interesting conversation with you.
Yeah.
Even if we took these wings away today and even if we took these sauces away today, right? And I think that is where his real triumph is.
Yes.
And now you're seeing like worlds start to collide, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, the new this thing is he's put himself up for an Emmy.
Ooh.
In the talk show format, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Where he's like, so what if I'm on YouTube? This is one of the most popular talk shows in the world. Like, so now we're starting to see words and structures collide, right? So it's quite cool, actually.
Yeah. Did you watch the Lewis Hamilton one?
I did watch the Lewis Hamilton one and it was good, but man, Conan O'Brien is a hard act to follow.
Yeah. But I love the Bobby Lee one where...
Did something just happen?
Yeah, hold on.
It's too good. It's a great format.
Who is that other guy when it comes to podcasts, Theo Von, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I haven't seen too much Theo Von stuff.
You must just watch the Louis C.K. podcast with Theo Von. Like that's a very good start for at least. And anytime Bobby Lee and Theo Von appear together.
Okay, cool.
Like that is there. And you were asking me for some podcast recommendations. And we were talking about important figures जिनके बारे में हमें पता होना चाहिए. So there's this podcast called the Founders Podcast, which is by David Senera. That's the name of the guy. वो एक बंदा पकड़ता है. जैसे हो गया. इस केस में 2 Wright Brothers. अब Wright Brothers पे जितनी किताबें वो पढ़ के आता है और 1 घंटे में मैं सब बताऊंगा तुम्हें.
That's what hardcore history does with history, right? Dan Carlin's entire thing is also मैं सारी किताबें पढ़ लूंगा. और फिर 2 घंटे में मैं सुना दूंगा रोम की हिस्ट्री. So that's a great format. I love the idea of somebody who'll crunch information interestingly for you.
Yes.
Right after doing research.
Yes. तो इसमें सारे like new age Sam Altman भी होंगे, but like you will go to all the old inventors.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you'll have your Walt Disney also.
Tesla and Edison.
You will have the new Tesla also and the old Tesla.
And the old Tesla also. Amazing.
So Founders Podcast is one that I would like strongly recommend.
Okay, Founders Podcast, that's one.
And बाकी यार मैं I listen to some people जिनकी कहीं पे भी appearances आती है मुझे पसंद आता है.
कौन? Who are those people for you?
One is Rick Rubin. I like swear by उसका बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है. And then there is this podcast, Chris Williamson. Like he's this like athlete kind of a guy, like who runs this health related podcast. So you will see Dr. Peter Attia, the Outlive guy.
Right,
Have you read Outlive?
No, I haven't.
Outlive is one book that I swear by, and it like
Outlive,
जैसे अगर 3 Body Problem ने fiction में मेरी life change किया, non-fiction में.
What is the sort of premise of the book?
कि बेसिकली हम 4 रीजंस की वजह से मरते हैं. या तो हमें हार्ट डिजीज होगी या हमें अल्जाइमर्स वाले जोन में कुछ होगा. एंड लाइक सो द 4 हॉर्समैन जिसे कहते हैं. सो इज लाइक मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि हाउ यू हैव टू लिव अ लाइफ जिससे आपको ये 4 तरीके की बीमारियां ना हो. एंड आई हैड अ मीटअप रिसेंटली वेयर वी वर डिस्कसिंग हाउ आउटलिव इज नॉट जस्ट फॉर यू बट फॉर योर फैमिली ऑल्सो.
गॉट इट.
लाइक आप कार्डियो कर रहे हो, डू यू नो जोन 2 वर्कआउट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वर्कआउट. आप कार्डियो करके आ गए, आपकी 120 BPM पे हार्ट रेट रह गई. So he has extensively talked about like and then there is whole chapter dedicated to sleep. Sleep पे इतना सारा content है, but this was the most beautiful chapter I've read on sleep. Sleep पे like मेरे को लगता है every 3rd person has fatty liver right now. So like कैसे accumulation होती है इन चीजों की. So it's one of the most important books I've ever
Outlive.
read.
I guess that's on my list next. That sounds really interesting.
And so Dr. Peter Attia, so अगर वो Huberman पे आता है या all these appearances he makes, like again I'll like try to go and see all of it.
Nice.
And so Huberman, Chris Williamson, इनके कुछ episodes like that I really like. And Chris Williamson is one person you should.
Okay, like, Chris Williamson and Peter Attia. Outlive is the book.
Outlive is the book.
Outlive is the book. Got it.
And उसकी audiobook भी है which is narrated. So audiobook की trick
है. And is it available on Audible?
It is available on Audible.
Ching.
So the trick is like अभी साहिबा के साथ भी we were talking about it कि if the author is the narrator, then audiobooks are so much fun.
Fair, yeah.
So much fun. So Peter Attia is the Like, or otherwise get a Stephen Fry.
Otherwise, yeah, then just get somebody with like a lot of personality.
Yeah, or a Neil Gaiman. Like,
yeah, or that then. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is your favorite Neil Gaiman book?
Hey, that's a tough one. You know what? Actually, Sandman.
Oh, nice.
Sandman. Like the novels are great, but I think again, Sandman is just everything. The art style, the writing, just the takes on the idea of like, you know, dream in the endless, like whether it's death or delirium or all of those people. And just, again, just using that framework to tell stories with so much heart, right? So much heart, like in them is just, like again, I remember, and again, as a fan of comic books, right? Again, to just read a comic that is unlike other comics. Right? It's not a traditional superhero story or like this guy has like, essentially celestial powers. But it's just, you use that to just tell beautiful, heartwarming stories, essentially almost across genres. So yeah, actually, I think Sandman is my favorite Gaiman. What's your favorite Gaiman?
इनकी एक किताब है छोटी सी, How to Talk to Girls at Parties.
Okay.
Which has nothing to do with this.
Sure. Amazing.
मैंने सोचा कुछ help मिलेगी मतलब पढ़ से.
My favorite Neil Gaiman anecdote is that one where he writes about how he went to this gathering.
No,
right?
I don't know.
So basically he talks about how he's standing at this gathering, like he's gone to this gathering and he's feeling a little out of place and he's talking and there's another man standing next to him and they start talking about the fact that they both have the same first name. Okay, and they're just talking about that and this guy goes, you know what, I mean, it's supposed to be like this very like gathering of like famous, important people, etc., whatever, and this guy is talking to Neil Gaiman and he goes, you know, I don't know why I'm here. Like, यहाँ के बाकी सारे लोग बहुत बड़े लोग हैं लेकिन मैं तो भाई बस एक सोल्जर था और जहाँ मुझे भेजा गया मैं गया वहाँ पे, मतलब बस और कुछ नहीं हूँ मैं, तो मुझे पता नहीं मैं यहाँ पे क्यों हूँ. At which point Neil Gaiman turns to him and basically what he's trying to illustrate to the story is imposter syndrome. Okay, where he's like, I talked to this man who seemed to have like very strong imposter syndrome and he said, यहाँ तो बहुत मशहूर लोग हैं, मैं भाई एक सेवक हूँ, सोल्जर हूँ, पायलट हूँ, यहाँ भेजा गया मैं गया, मतलब इतना ग्रेट क्या है उसमें. At which point Gaiman turns to him and goes, yeah Neil, but you were the first man on the moon, so maybe that counts for something, you know. That was Neil Armstrong that he was talking to. And I think that's just a great little anecdote about imposter syndrome that's great to keep in your head. You know, if you ever sort of feel about it. Like Neil Armstrong had imposter syndrome. And again, it's just such a nicely written anecdote by Neil Gaiman because he disguises it, right? Like all the way to the end when he's talking.
Where can I read this?
You'll find it online. Like you literally, it's just like a paragraph almost. And you'll find it online. And it's beautiful.
I want to take a big segue now. Abhi 2 mahine pehle I was going through a tricky phase, so I gifted myself a PS5.
Oh yeah.
And then I asked everyone, which game? Bahut kuch hai. But I started with, I'll tell you my journey, then you tell me what should I add. After all the advice, I started with, मैंने सब कह रहे थे मैं Red Dead को R2D2 बुलाता हूँ for some reason.
That's fine. RDR2, R2D2.
Yeah, I call it R2D2, so let's call it R2D2. Like GT5 डाल, R2D2 डाल. I started with 2 games. First is Ghost of Tsushima.
Beautiful.
So, है ना, तो मैंने start वहाँ से की और मैंने वो opening की कि जब like लिखा हुआ आता है and like अच्छा मैं move कर रहा हूँ. और जब आप ऐसे and I'm like what the. Then I started with this game a friend recommended called Control.
Control is great. Yeah.
So Control
by Remedy.
is there. Yeah. And then everyone was saying, मेरे friends में कि Death Stranding मत खेलना, अभी तू आया ही है.
Death Stranding is like if you've just started watching movies today. Oh, you played Death Stranding?
I played Death Stranding and that has been the best.
Oh, dude. Then, in that case, very straightforward. Play Disco Elysium. You got to play Disco Elysium. It's just one of the trippiest things ever. It is essentially, like the only way to describe it is like True Detective as a graphic novel. Okay, and the entire game is just conversations. You're basically a detective that's woken up with a hangover. You drank so much, you don't even know why you're there and what the case is. And you start from there. Except there's an inside voice that keeps talking to you and telling you suck and that you're a failure. Okay, and the whole game is essentially you first trying to figure out what is this hangover, where am I? And then also trying to solve the case just by wandering around this town and talking to people. And that's it. There's no action, there's no nothing. It is purely like art and story. And the whole thing, basically, it's like Dungeons. It's based on like an almost D&D type system where you have different attributes and skills, like as an RPG, and you can keep adjusting them. So you can have like high charisma but low intelligence. You can have high intuition but low charisma. So you're very good at intuiting things that people say, but you're also terrible at talking to them. So the entire way the game goes is dictated by how you can have these conversations and like on the dice roll checks that happen. And it is one of the most surreal, trippy like art style and this thing games that I've ever played, where it's all down to character and story.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's not like the longest game in the world. It can be frustrating also, but I mean, I feel like if you've managed Death Stranding, then Disco Elysium is like nothing. Complete opposite end of the scale, recently I played Elden Ring. That game broke me, right? Like that game broke me and is devastating and is brilliant. Like in the sense that it is one of the hardest games I've played in my life, right? And it's one of those games where you can be like, are there any tips and tricks that I can use to get better at this game? And all anyone from the community will tell you is, yes, practice. Practice and get good. Basically, it's one of those, it's pure gaming. Like in the sense that the game almost has it's got a story, but the story is completely buried. It's just you're in this world. And you literally can find out about the story if you want, or otherwise you just go through this world. Like dying, coming back, fighting the thing again, dying, getting stronger, coming back, fighting again. Completely different journey. I think one of the greatest games of this generation, Baldur's Gate 3. It's a D&D game, literally. It's based on the D&D system. But it is, like, there's open world and then there's literally find out, like in the sense, endless choice. Like the game has literally endless choice. Like everything comes down to conversations and like the choices that you choose from the sort of drop down. Even the action is turn-based because it's Dungeons and Dragons. So the spells you choose. And again, there's no one way to play the game. You can choose to be a wizard, you can choose to be a fighter, your party of 4 people. You have to keep controlling 4 characters. And it's from that top-down view. Everything is turn-based. But I have played that game. I put at least, I think, 600 hours into that game over 3 separate runs. And every single time that game has surprised me, like if I just make one different choice, like after playing it 3 times and 200 hours each time, I'm still finding new things in that game. Just based on new conversation choices I'm making. Like that's it. It's like it's an epic, like unlike any other. And again, because it's turn-based, it's very low stress. And what you can do is you can save literally every 2 minutes if you want. And you can have separate save files and in fact, the legitimate way people are like, you know what, if it's go back to your previous save and try another choice. Like, if you don't want to sort of do this, you don't want to, just go back and do it. And I think one of the most, it's got some of the greatest voice work, character work that I've seen in my life.
What in the sweet hells were you thinking, activating that lot? I was right there!
It is really a story about the individual journeys that each of your companions and you are on. And just by sort of either helping your companions achieve their goals, some of the stories that you get about them, I think some of the deepest, richest stories I've seen like in a video game. And again, like I said, it's definitely the best acting I've seen in a video game.
Wow.
Like from the actual, just the level of detail in the motion capture to the voice work. Like just the gravitas and like the heartbreak that some of the characters have. There's this one character, Karlak, who I think has become like my favorite video game character ever. Yeah, it's brilliant. If you struggle with it at all, let me know. I'll hop on with you. We'll co-op because you can co-op.
Ooh.
You can online co-op. And
nice.
we can co-op and we can take down that world together. And I will happily go into Baldur's Gate again and again and again.
This is the game with 600 hours of game.
This is the game I put 600 hours into. I've played it thrice. I was like 3 separate, so 200 on each run.
And when it comes to gameplay, which is the game jahan pe you have touched a triple digit hours mein number?
None, no. Triple digit? No, 4 digits you mean.
Sorry,
This is triple digits. This is good enough,
so
I think.
Triple digit is common, like...
Triple digit depends. Like some games usually like in the sense if they're very... Ooh, you like Star Wars?
Not that. Aap jitna usme...
Play Survivor. Jedi Survivor. It's actually one of the better Star Wars stories. Hey, was Andor out when we did our last chat?
I'm not sure.
Then I highly recommend Andor as a show to anyone. Doesn't matter whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. It is the most adult Star Wars show or Star Wars media that has ever been made. And it's brilliant. Like in the sense that, in fact, it's the opposite of everything you expect from Star Wars. Where they're like, you know what, we're not going to do, there's no fights, there's no aliens. There's no nothing. It is a purely political drama.
I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
It's essentially a prequel to Rogue One. Literally, it is, and it is magnificent. Like that first season is, for me, I think one of the best shows of last year far and away, across categories. Like, I'll put it up there with Succession, with anything else, and or season 1. And it's got nothing. You don't have to know a thing about Star Wars to watch Andor.
Where is it available?
Hotstar.
Nice.
Definitely. But yeah, I would recommend definitely, if you're, the thing is there's a lot of like more linear action adventure games that you can play. Like I would absolutely recommend the Uncharted series. Uncharted 4 is essentially the most recent high-tech one. But Uncharted 2 is one of the most entertaining games in the world, in my opinion. It's basically, like, if I had to pitch it to you in one line, it's, what if you got to control Indiana Jones on one of his most unhinged adventures, right? Basically, you play the archaeologist and you just go on this romp of an adventure. Excellent action, very cinematic game. Like the set pieces, the action, this thing, that's extremely cinematic, right? Like, it's one of those games where, like, your palms are sweating at certain moments. You're just laughing your ass off at other moments. There are cutscenes that are just so cinematically thrilling. They even tried to make a movie out of it with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Never watched that movie. Never. But the game series, so Thief's End is the 4th game. Highly recommend it. Because what happens with the earlier games, they might seem a little dated graphically, etc. But Thief's End is... And it's a very linear game.
Okay.
Like there's no open, it's like you'll just play the story. Through and through. Like it's like watching a great 3-act movie. Literally. Very well done. So Uncharted I definitely recommend.
And which is the Spider-Man game to start with?
The first one, Spider-Man.
Okay. And then Miles
Morales comes second.
Okay.
And then is Spider-Man 2. But I think Spider-Man, the first one, is still like astonishing. Like it's that again, it's one of those games that just keeps giving. Like you reach a point in the game where you fight one boss and you're like, I think the game is done, and then the game begins. Literally, and then the game begins. And it's great. And also, it's just a very good Spider-Man story. Genuine. I think the main thing is, right, is like when somebody, like for me, Spider-Man is one of those characters where you have to nail the heart, right, of this kid, basically, right? You have to nail Peter. It's not about Spider-Man, it's about Peter, right? You got to nail Peter, Spider-Man works. If you nail Peter, Spider-Man works. And this game really nails Peter, and just how hard it is to be Peter, like in that sort of way. It's beautiful. Like it's a great story, great game.
And the Harry Potter one, what's the name?
You know, Hogwarts Legacy, I actually did not enjoy. I feel like it's one of those games
It's the more popular opinion, I think.
It's like a very beautiful but empty shell. Like for example, if you have any Harry Potter fandom in you, for the first 6 hours, you'll be delighted.
Yeah.
Because the way they've recreated Hogwarts and the way they've done all of that, it's magnificent. Yeah. But after that, you're just like, it's just repetitive loops of like very, very mediocre, in my opinion, gameplay. Especially considering that it came out in the same year as Jedi Survivor, Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, all came out in the same year. It just feels like a new graphics update of a slightly older game style, right? And just things like, especially after you play something like a Baldur's Gate or an Elden Ring, you see great voice acting and great motion capture. This is like almost amateur. Like the voice work, etc. is like literally like the same character will repeat the same dialogue 500 times and all of those things. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, come on. This is a little half-assed.
Yeah.
Like, little half-assed it is.
Yeah. A friend of mine is...
GTA 5. You need to play GTA 5. All right, you really need to play GTA 5. Like it's a satire of all video games, okay? Where it's like, you like violence. It's like, you like violence, we'll make you enjoy the violence, but also make you go like, why am I doing this? Right? It's also an amazing satire of just modern sort of pop cultural American thinking also.
Nothing increases funding for fighting terrorism more than successful acts of terrorism.
Like it is just such an unhinged, like, game. An unhinged parody satire game that is also thrilling though. Like genuinely thrilling. I think one of the greatest like Los Santos is still for me one of the greatest like open worlds just in terms of, the thing with GTA 5 is there are entire days where you can just get into a car. There are 10 actual radio stations in the game that have like essentially parodies of radio jockeys just saying really disturbing things. And actual songs. Like they've got licensed like 200 songs, and each radio station is a different genre. There are entire days where I'm just driving around Los Santos listening to music.
Damn.
Like I'm not doing anything else. I'm just riding around Los Santos, minding my own business, hanging out, occasionally getting into shit if I want to. Randomly, you'll meet a guy who looks like Stephen Colbert who'll sell you weed, except the weed makes you paranoid and then you have to face your greatest fear. So suddenly a bunch of clowns start attacking you with machine guns and you're like, ah, and then you realize the whole thing was just a hallucination.
So मैंने बचपन में वाइस सिटी बहुत खेला था तो अभी जब मेरे पास PS5 नहीं था तो मैं मेरे दोस्त के घर जाता था भाई मेरे को 5 स्टार करके दे दे मैं पुलिस से भागूंगा.
हाँ, it literally, and dude, it is literally that. And it's that but taken to like the nth degree in this. Like the characters in this game are hilarious. They're essentially parodies of gangster stereotypes almost in movies. Like there's this guy called Michael who's supposed to be like this very Sonny Corleone-ish figure, but like he's nothing, alright? He's like this, like his wife is cheating on him, like his son doesn't respect him, like nothing, but he's basically, there's other guy called Trevor who's completely unhinged. Like completely, one of the greatest characters I think in a game ever. Every time you switch to his character, or every time you restart the game, like if you had saved it, quit or whatever, and you go back to it, you will always come back to Trevor in a random location. Okay, like basically Trevor, where like at one point, literally for no reason came back, wo kahan chaddi mein utha hai? And now I'm just walking around the game and my chaddi is like with a machine gun. What the going on here? Like, what the hell? I wasn't doing any of this earlier. It's an unhinged delight of a game, GTA 5.
Yeah. A friend has been pushing for me to play this game, the Plague game.
A Plague Tale. Plague Tale is a really good game also.
Yeah.
If you, not on a PS5, you can play this on your PC also, just to see, one game I absolutely recommend, very, very entertaining. There's this company called Supergiant Games. They make these really fun roguelites, one called Hades, another one called Bastion. Highly recommend, alright? They're not even like heavy graphics games or whatever. But again, just goes to show that games are like Hollywood in the sense that you can have your $300 million production, but you can have something that was made by like a team of 50 people under budget. But all they did is found a really cool art style, found a cool voice, called this thing. So this game called Hades is literally you are Zagreus, the son of Hades. And you're essentially rebellious and you're like, I want to leave Hades. And then you fight, and you die and then you come back to the beginning. And you come back to the beginning, literally Hades is sitting there like you're this thing. Because he's your dad, no? And he's basically like, oh ho, aa gaye, Lad Sahab. Oh ho, escape karne gaye the hamare bete. And you're like, I will escape. And then you try all over again. And the whole game is just you coming back. Except every time you come back to the start, you get stronger. Because you keep your coins from the previous sort of this thing.
Nice.
And so you do it. And there's a God mode in it where every time you die and come back, you get 2% more invincible. So after 60 tries, you'll just be able to do it.
Oh, dude.
But it's just the art style is fun. The characters are entertaining. It's just such a great, weird take on like this little thing. Bastion also is like that. It's just this guy going through this thing and just the weirdest narrator ever. Like one of the most entertaining narrators I've ever seen in a game. Like at one point, if you're just wandering around in the game and just like not doing any objectives and just smashing shit, like randomly the narrator who's telling your story would be like, the kid just rages for a while.
Kid just rages for a while.
Like he's just acknowledged the fact that you're doing dumb shit. Like for no reason. Brilliant, brilliant games.
How much have you tried VR gaming?
Not very much actually. I haven't actually had a chance to do much VR gaming. Like I've gone to the Zero, but I don't own a personal VR headset yet. Because I'm already very deep in the rabbit hole. And I don't think I need another reason to be more in the rabbit hole. But eventually I will get there. Right now I just feel like with the backlog and classic catalog of games, eventually I'll get to VR.
Yeah, a friend has been going batshit crazy about some of the games on Quest 3. Like F1 on Quest 3.
Oh,
and
I'm
like,
sure. Like some of those VR, I think there's a new Batman game coming out in VR. Like, oh, that's another game you should play by the way, if you're a Batman fan. The Arkham series, at least the first 2 games. Arkham City especially, the second game.
Got it. Hitman is also coming on VR.
Hitman is
so
also
would you recommend
VR.
Hitman 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, little dated there, but they're fun. Again, just in the sense of like, okay, you're a hitman, there's 100 different ways you can achieve this target.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can go in there guns blazing, or you can be like, okay, I'm going to dress in like a chicken mascot suit and get close to this guy in the supermarket and then stab him.
Yeah.
It's entirely up to you.
Yeah. Since we are talking about games, any new board games or party games that...
Oh, so many. One is this party game, there's a game called Wavelength. Okay, highly recommended. I think one of the greatest games I played in my life. One, no barrier to entry. One of the easiest games to get into. It takes 5 minutes to explain it and it is meant to be dropped into a party. Alright, like this actually happened at like my Christmas party. There were a bunch of people over and there were mixed groups. You know, कभी-कभी होता है कि ये लोग इन लोगों से बात करेंगे या मुझे एक group के साथ बात करना पड़ेगा फिर दूसरे group के साथ बात करना पड़ेगा. Dude, this game is designed to break the ice, literally. It's called Wavelength. It's very simple. You basically, there's a spectrum, like a speedometer, 0 to 100. Okay, and you as the denner are the only person who sees where the needle is.
Okay.
Okay, and then you cover it. So say for example, if it's a 0 to 100%, right? Or let's say left side to right side, only you've seen where the needle is and you've shut it. And you get a card which shows you the two ends of the spectrum. So for example, it'll be as simple as overrated sex move, underrated sex move. Okay, but only you know where the needle is. So now when you turn it to everyone in the party, you have to describe a sex move that will get them to go, I think the needle is here, or I think the needle is here. So everyone in the party is just debating the choice that you gave, which then just turns into 20 people talking because it's essentially high emotion opinions on low stakes things.
Wow.
And literally within 20 minutes of starting that game, dude, every barrier between my party ka groups had broken down.
Wow.
Like because people are just finding out little things about each other by but you know, actually I think this is an overrated. Like once we played literally as simple as sexy emoji, unsexy emoji. Okay. And one of my friends said the Bengan emoji. Okay. Which started a 45-minute debate where like half of us were like, no, what is sexy about that? Like it's so obvious, it's so on the nose, it's so this thing. And half the people were like, no, it's when we realized that there's actually a huge divide on like the Bengan, where literally we've been friends for 20 years, some of us. And they're like, really? You think it's sexy? It's like, I don't know you at all. What is so sexy about the Bengan emoji? And then you're just, for 45 minutes, everybody in the party is just talking about the Bengan emoji. And then before you know it, everybody's like, next time they'll be like, हाँ, पता है तूने Bengan emoji के बारे में क्या बोला था? So it's just I think the greatest party game I've played in my life. Wavelength is definitely one that I recommend. Yeah. And there's the other one that a friend of mine introduced me to called Space Base, which is very fun. Not a party game. That's a more sort of sit down, 5-6 player game. Really fun.
It's a board game?
It's a board game
Got
called
it.
Space Base. That was also very, very fun. Those are two that right now are coming to the top of my mind.
How actively do you play Catan, Shasan and all that?
Catan and Shasan, not Sashan. I play a little bit, but it's hard to sort of get enough people together to sort of play that. So some Catan happens, some Shasan happens, some Wingspan happens, some Azul happens, some Reef happens, which is also a very fun game. Space Base, which we recently got, was very, very fun. A friend of mine got the Dune board game, Dune Imperium 2 or Dune Uprising. A very complex game, a very long game, but quite fun. Quite fun. It's like it takes like 6 hours to play through, and about 2 hours to explain. It's a complicated game. So again, it's very difficult to get people who are fully invested in that. But the others that I mentioned are actually quite like easy, low entry barrier games.
Yeah. So since I'll be 30 next month, so what I've like figured is कि board games kind of make you drink lesser and क्या होता है gossip खत्म हो जाती है एक time के बाद फिर दारू या कुछ भी आपको करना है.
Structured activity.
Yeah.
Structured activity, dude. Sometimes you need a little structured activity.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need unstructured activity. Sometimes you need structured activity. And I think life is a balance of both.
Yeah. So suddenly board games they are the solution to like this like 100%. very big problem.
100%. And especially if you're the sort of person that parties or like has friends who hang out in mixed groups, etc. a lot, Wavelength is something I would absolutely recommend. Yeah. Like absolutely 100% recommend.
Any new product recommendations? Any product for less than 10,000 rupees?
Any product for less than 10,000 rupees that I recommend? Sunscreen. Moisturizing sunscreen. It's called Episoft. It costs like $200. Not the thing. It's just moisturizer and sunscreen in one. We live in a very hot, sunny country, guys. As I age, I am learning importance of skincare. So, Episoft moisturizing sunscreen would be my recommendation to you.
In general, I need a good moisturizer. Which one should I go for? ये minimalist वगैरह ये सब like.
So just use this Episoft one for the day, no? Because it's moisturizing sunscreen.
But it should smell nice. The one I need, like so.
It doesn't smell bad.
Okay.
I'm wearing it right now. What the hell, man? You've been sitting next to me for 2.5 hours. Like, what? It should be fine. Don't be mean. No, it smells fine. It's great. They also had Clinique 72 hours moisture surge or whatever. What other product? AeroPress. I highly recommend everybody get an AeroPress. It is one of the most amazing ways to make coffee. It can travel with you everywhere. Coffee equipment is often very fiddly and like very delicate and strange or whatever. The AeroPress is just beautiful. Throw it in your bag, carry a couple of filters with you. You can make good coffee anywhere. You can make like different coffees of different intensities, different strengths, all of that. AeroPress definitely. Like I have an AeroPress Go. It is a life-saving device.
Which are some of your favorite coffees? Where do you like get your coffee from?
A bunch of different places. So I think KC Roasters had that winter espresso blend, which was pretty good. Then there's a company I think they're based out of Bangalore called Coffee Genetics. They have this coffee called Jack Sparrow. That's really nice. It's basically, it's aged in rum barrels. Wow. So it basically it doesn't have any rum, but it's got the taste of rum on it. So when you make a hot cup of coffee in the morning, you get the smell of great fresh coffee, but also with like a hint of like, rum, like on top. So the house also smells like there's been a bit of a party. So it's a great like weekend coffee because you feel like you're having like coffee with just one little rum. And it's a very delicious coffee.
Wow.
Like the house smells really nice when you make it. It's really nice to drink. Those are good coffees. I recently tried, so there's this coffee roastery in the UK called Dark Arts Coffee. They make some really good coffees. And their branding is also totally on point. Like aside from the fact that like they have this thing, or like if you read the back of the box, like they say a bunch of stuff about like, again, they're parodying that typical, we had this vision and ambition to be like this thing and we hoped like with every sale of our coffee, we would open the gates to hell and, stop this thing. But our branding didn't work out and now everybody just bullies us by calling us that stupid Harry Potter coffee. And so, please stop it, guys. And that's written on the box. And it's just very, very fun because a lot of like these coffee and enthusiasts, they take themselves very seriously.
Yeah.
This is very like, bhai, coffee peena, maze karna. We have good coffee, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
So those right now off the top of my head.
Have you tried Curious coffee?
No, I haven't actually. It's good.
It's good. It's from Jaipur. I have to get it for all my friends. Half-Light Coffee Roasters and Curious. Varun Grover and Dhruv Sehgal are like very, very big fans.
Okay.
So Curious, I would recommend.
Curious
also,
coffee.
Blue Tokai guys.
Blue Tokai. Now also available in beautiful blue glass mugs.
ये उन्होंने हमारे लिए special बनवाया.
Not available for anyone but Vaibhav in beautiful blue glass mugs. Q pleb. नहीं मिलेगा.
मैं ये coffee और food वाले tangent पे I had to ask you something but I forgot. Like, but any other beverage recommendations you have?
Water. Number one drink. Aging is realizing that water is the best drink on earth. We are 75% water for a reason.
Which is your favorite water brand? Like, किसका पानी आपको?
मेरे घर का पानी जिसमें मैं बहुत बर्फ डालता हूँ, ठीक है. मैं चिल्ड पानी का फैन हूँ. एक सेकेंड, यहाँ अभी भी आइस का आवाज आएगा. I don't trust that people give me water cold enough for my needs, so I take my own water everywhere. I don't believe in all this like prime water, flavored water, this, that, whatever. Just water. Water is best. Other than that, my unpopular opinion is the greatest beverage in the. I'm not a sports person, so I can say this. Coca-Cola. I don't need zero. I don't need diet. I don't need this thing. I am an adult. I know what I'm putting in my body. And when I drink Coca-Cola, I drink it for a specific reason. And that is because I want and need that nice sugary carbonated taste. Stop lying to yourself with this zero and this thing, okay? Sometimes man eats a butter chicken and there's oil in his throat. And the only number one sattvic detergent available in market for oil on throat is Coca-Cola and Thumbs Up, which removes everything. And everyone knows that meditation is okay. Everything is okay, but the number one way to reset the chi of the human body is by thumbs up Dakar. Alright? Everyone on earth knows this, the greatest lie. And yes, it is bad for you. Nobody's saying drink it every day. Nobody's saying drink 500 ml of it. But sometimes, I am now old enough to admit that sometimes all a man needs is good, sugary cola.
Good shit.
Or Blue Tokai coffee, available in special blue glass mugs only for Vaibhav.
What you said? Yeah, it's reminding me of the Gaurav Kapoor ka reel. Ajinomoto, white processed sugar.
White processed Ajinomoto.
From pesticide to me.
Nothing from farm to me. Farm to pesticide to factory, and then after tasty processing, then to me.
Yes, directly from, yeah, exactly like that. Sometimes guy just needs sugary cola. I'm very sorry. Children, don't drink it. I am not children. I am adult. I'll put whatever I want in my body. How dare you?
One segment that we have never done before is the travel recommendation. People are very much interested in your favorite locations in India and outside of India.
In India, recently, I will say this. I have really been enjoying going. I'm rediscovering Goa. More than anything, just as like earlier used to go beaches, drinking, etc., whatever. Man, the food scene in Goa is just too good. All kinds of, I think whether it's because of the food costs and the overall running costs are lower than some of the other places in India. Man, some of the food I have had in Goa recently it's broken my brain. Like my last 2 trips to Goa, all I have done is eaten food. Like it's like go for breakfast, come back, sleep. Go for lunch, come back, sleep. Go for dinner, come back, sleep. Highly recommend the Tamil Table. Highly recommend Fireback. Those are restaurants. What else would I recommend in Goa that I had? Gunpowder was really nice when I went. Where else did we go? Got burgers from the Burger Factory. Those were delicious. Just excellent food all around. I mean, Izumi is also open there, but wo to Bombay mein milega. But just overall, you can, like, there's just people messing around and doing really fun things with food in Goa. And especially coming from a city like Mumbai, where everybody seems to be doing more and more, like, just lowest common denominator restaurants, like, to justify the high rents and all of that. Goa is very, very fun taste bud party. Number 1, highly recommend. And yeah, so that is one place that, I know that sounds like basic to say Goa, but I would say Goa for food, like specifically more than Goa. My recommendation is Goa. Eating your way through Goa is something that I highly recommend. And not just, you know, we think of Goa, we think of Goan food. Yes, vindaloo and fish curry and rice and all. Yes, you get beautiful food of that nature there as well. But there's people who are really having fun with different cuisines and different genres in Goa. And I think like the best is yet to come.
Goa ke alawa, like any other places?
Goa ke alawa, any other places? Haven't traveled that much recently actually. I've been quite like stuck
but
here in this city.
India ke bahar ka bhi koi?
India ke bahar ka matlab wo to, I always love like going to Thailand in terms of, again, just great food. Astonishingly good food, great prices. The joys of getting a massage, smoking legal weed, and then eating papaya salad in shorts is just one of life's greatest pleasures, I think. I think if you had to ask me to describe a perfect day, it would be a day in Phuket where I just get like a back-breaking sports massage, then smoke one, and then sit and eat papaya salad and crispy fluffy fish salad, and just...
And usme GTA 5 mein gaadi chala rahe ho?
हाँ, बस enjoy कर रहे यार, sunset देख रहा है Patong beach पे, और बस... I think just in general, like, yeah, don't, and I know Thailand is the cliche one, but I think we need to stop sleeping on East Asia in general. Like, I feel like that's like where the real party is, like Vietnam, Thailand, all of those places. I think there's just, even culturally, there's a lot to explore there still.
So, I'll be 30 next month. Any recommendations for entering into the world of 30s?
Yes. Do you exercise regularly?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all that matters. Be kind to your body, eat well, sleep regularly, drink lots of water, be kind to your knees, exercise, move your body at least 3 to 4 days a week. Yeah, the other thing is, if you have an issue with anyone, talk it out. All right? You are no longer in your 20s. You are no longer beholden to childish toxicity. You can now have adult conversations with your friends. I think the other advice is just enjoy it. Like, I have to say, I don't know where we talk, but like 30s were like a best decade hands down of my life. Like hands down. I feel like a lot of possibilities open up in your life. I think you're going to be more secure in yourself than you ever were sort of in your 20s. I think you're going to know what you like, you're going to know what you dislike. I think you're going to be more confident about expressing those things just for yourself. Yeah, just have fun, man.
Good shit.
Good shit. And let's play tennis sometime.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because that's the other thing about getting into your 30s. You gotta start finding adult hobbies now.
Yes.
Right? I think adult hobbies are like extremely important in this world. And tennis is one of my great fun adult hobbies.
Yeah, same. One of the best decisions I took. I started playing it in Bangalore. I had gone on a vacation, and when I came back, I'm like, khelna.
100%. And whatever else, like in the sense, I go to the gym regularly. I have a great time. Like lifting weights at the gym is one of the greatest things in my life. I think one of the best ways to keep your bodies working is keep lifting weight. But I feel like gym cardio doesn't do it for me. I feel like sport cardio beats anything you could do at the gym.
Yes.
Because you know what? Today, if you're on a treadmill, you're on a rowing machine, whatever, there's no goal. You'll stop at some point. Yeah. Tennis, there are days where I don't realize until the point is over how hard I've pushed my body. And I've pushed it in a way I would never have pushed it at the gym. But just in that blind hunt for the point and for the ball and for getting it across the line, I think like that cardio is...
And anything that I didn't discuss, जाते आप कोई चीज़ बोलना चाहते हो?
नहीं यार, पार्ट 3 के लिए रखते हैं ना. Now that I've realized कि हर 2 साल करना पड़ेगा, थोड़े recommendations बैक पॉकेट में तो रखूंगा मैं अगले चैट के लिए.
Yeah, amazing. Anything you would like to plug or like?
No, I mean I have stand-up and shows that are happening across the city, and I have hope. Well, not immediately because traveling in the monsoon is no fun. But in October, I plan to start my next stand-up tour all over India. I'll be visiting all major cities at least. And if, aside from the Delhi, Bangalore, etc., whatever, if you would, like to see me in your city, please reach out and let me know because it's always helpful to know where people want you to go. Aside from that, please follow me on Instagram at Mojorojo. Check out my pop culture recommendations. And the reason I ask about the followers, I have a lot of people sort of stop me and ask like, where can we find out if and when shows are happening, etc., whatever. My Instagram is always the first place that is updated with that sort of information. So yeah, come. We'll enjoy pop culture recommendations, like terrible jokes and tour dates.
And we give a hashtag to ask. आप लोगों को हम बोलते हैं कि यहाँ तक अगर episode देखा है तो एक hashtag use कीजिए comments में. So what should be the hashtag? If you have watched the episode till here, use the hashtag.
If you have watched the episode till here, use the hashtag no pop culture peer pressure, hashtag enjoy what you enjoy.
Lovely.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Brother, always a pleasure.
मजा आ गया.
Always a pleasure.
Hey guys, so कैसा लगा episode मुझे comments में बताइए. And we have already mentioned the hashtags, so use those hashtags in comments. By the way, the audio versions of these episodes are now out on Audible, so go and check those out too. 2 more episodes are left in this season. Let us know your experience. कैसा लगा ये पूरा का पूरा season? Comments में बताते रहिए, हमें बहुत motivation मिलती है. And I'll see you guys soon with another episode of The Longest Interview.